in this courtroom right now. The verdict has been read. I would imagine that he will be escorted to chambers and then back to jail. He has not been in jail during this process, I should point out. Jonathan.
The most difficult thing to watch is when
waiting for a verdict, my friends,
particularly a young defendant, directly to jail after a decision of the court. No matter how well you prepare the family, it is a devastating moment, and it's devastating for everyone, even people who think that the person should go to jail. The family is never prepared for seeing their son or daughter taken to a side door by marshals. And it is a really tough thing to watch.
You know, by all accounts, this is a young man who had no prior convictions, no prior arrests. He apparently had a very good grade point average, 3.7 in his high school. Obviously, dreams for the future. His family had dreams for the future for him. And now a jury has convicted this Texas teenager, Carmelo Anthony, in the fatal stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. This case obviously has drawn national attention since it happened last year. Paul Morrow, your reaction?
Well, under the facts that we know, this seems to be the correct verdict. I mean, let me point something out that I felt set the tenor for the defense right off the top. In his opening statement, the defense attorney made a statement that Karmelo felt in fear because the Metcalf brothers surrounded him. That was in the opening statements almost as a justification for what he did. And those of us who follow this kind of stuff, and let me take my lawyer hat off for a second, right? Because most jurors are not lawyers. Let's just appeal to common sense. The picture in the mind of the jurors that the opening statement from the defense seemed to paint was of Carmelo Anthony sitting there with a bag next to him in which he secreted a knife, which he apparently was ready to use and which he warned he was ready to use, and that he felt justified in using because two brothers who were bigger than him were standing over him. By that metric, I could likely commit a stabbing every time I ride the subway in New York City. And I'm not being frivolous. That's how ludicrous a scenario that is. So I kept waiting for some sort of narrative, something that justified why it was that Carmelo Anthony, A, was there and felt like he had a right to be there while armed, but B, felt like his life was in such danger that stabbing somebody in the chest was going to be justifiable.
That was the only answer.
That's it. And it comes down to that. And jurors, whether you're a lawyer or not, see that.
And obviously these jurors have come to this conclusion. They do not believe that there was legitimate fear for his life that left him no other option. They found that that was not the case in this. Brooke Rollins is outside. Brooke Taylor, excuse me. Brooke, let's go to you.
They might be fighting.
Hi, Martha. So we just found out, as you mentioned, that Carmelo Anthony has been found guilty of murdering Austin Metcalf. I'm going to step out of the way so you could see what's going on right now. It looks like we have a fight that's happening. I mean, we've expected this, Martha. The last few days, security here has been on standby, waiting for this verdict in anticipation that supporters might get rowdy. And we're trying to move a little bit closer while staying safe, of course, to see what it looks like is happening. It looks like there is some sort of fight here. I do want to mention we are surrounded by deputies here to make sure that things don't get out of control. The crowd, I want to say it's about 100 people or so with their phones in the air, moving closer to see what this fight is all about. But this case, it has caused high emotion on both sides. It's become a racial case, so that has heightened things as well. And it looks like my photographer is telling me they are arresting someone right now. See if we can get a little bit closer. Like I mentioned, I'm not surprised that they made this arrest quickly because deputies here have been making sure that Sorry, we are moving a little bit closer. I'm not surprised that this arrest happened quickly because deputies have made their presence clear that they are not going to tolerate any form of chaos, and looks like they have taken him out. They have taken somebody in custody. Fight still happening right now. I'm looking at one baby right now with a bottle in his mouth. So there are little kids here and families, and you have all of this going on, Martha.
Brooke, give us an indication of what to expect next in terms of whether or not the prosecution will be coming out to talk about the outcome of this case. Do we expect to hear from the Metcalf family members or the Anthony family members? And what about sentencing? Do we know yet what the plan is for that?
So right now there is a gag order in place. So no one is allowed to speak to the media until the sentencing portion of this. So I don't expect to hear from any family members or any of the prosecution or the defense because of that gag order that's in place. So this is what's going to happen next. So as you saw and as you heard, Carmelo Anthony, he's been out on bond, a $250,000 bond that his supporters have been able to raise. Now that he's been found guilty of murder, he was taken into custody, and the next step is going to be that sentencing. So in this case, what's going to happen, the same jury, they are going to decide what his sentencing will be. Here in this murder case, Carmelo Anthony faces up to prison, and are being moved right now because, again, it's a little hectic over here. And then what's going to happen is there's a whole other trial for this sentencing, even though it's the same jury. And again, that jury is then going to decide what the sentencing will be. And then after that, of course, that gag order will be lifted. And I think that's when you're going to start to hear from both sides and family members. And as for timing, Martha, I'm told that it could happen as quickly as today, but there's also a chance that the judge tells the jurors to come back tomorrow, and that's when the so-called sentencing trial will begin.
Yeah, we see people hugging outside the courthouse here. And when they go to the sentencing part of this, which Brooke has laid out for us really well, it will be the same jury in this Texas jury in McKinney, Texas, who will decide the sentencing for Carmelo Anthony. He could get life in prison for this murder charge in the death of Austin Metcalf, whose death he has just been convicted of. So there is a whole nother part of this process. In terms, Paul Morrow, of how the judge has handled this case, which moved very quickly, your reaction?
Well, the sequestering of the jury, I think, was the right move from the get-go, right? They have to feel that they're going to be safe. They're not going to be intimidated by people coming to the courthouse to make as much noise as possible. We've seen instances here in New York where a jury has had to literally thread the phalanx of crowds screaming at them as they go in. And what that tells them is not only that there are going to be repercussions to whatever they decide, but in many instances, it means they're identified. And the last thing you want is a juror thinking about what is it going to be like for me when I go back to my neighborhood. And that was kind of the point I was trying to make relative to the witnesses in this case. But the judge, look, he moved the thing along. We only had a week of the prosecution case. It was a defense decision to put on as brief a case as they did. The piece of this that will be questioned relative to the judge's decisions is going to go back to the decision to exclude the 3 black female juror educators who were excluded by the prosecution. They exercised their exemptions. They got the 3 of them off. That is almost certainly going to be an avenue for appeal. The judge's justification for that was that it had nothing to do with race, and that's what the prosecution contended, but it had to do with the fact that they were educators. And as teachers, the feeling was that they were going to be inclined in a way that cut towards the defense. Prosecution made that case compellingly enough so that the judge went to it. That's where the appeal is going to go. But I have to tell you, judges are human beings as well. And they see the facts of a case, they see the outcome of a case, the repercussions from a case. And I have to say, I would be surprised if this verdict is overturned and we have to go through this again. I think the defense chose their fate here. They went all the way with this, and they got the verdict that, in my estimation, is the just one.
So, Donna, in terms of the sentencing process here, what do we expect? Is the sentencing, the number of years up to this jury? Does the judge weigh in? This does vary from state to state and district to district.
It does vary, Martha, and obviously the fact that the jury is going to be weighing in on sentencing leads me to believe that they're going to be able to have some type of say, because otherwise the only focus or purpose they would have would be as if this were a death penalty case, which it is not. So given the fact that the jury is around for the sentencing phase leads me to believe that they will have a say. What I do think is really interesting here, and I think that this is the reason the case played out the way it did, the defense attorney knew that this jury was going to be involved in the sentencing phase. The judge was listening to all the testimony here, and I think this is the reason some of these facts came in. The things that we were talking about earlier, how he reacted after the fact, I think some of that is trying to be mitigating. I don't think that the defense truly believed that there was ever a true self-defense claim here and that this is what they had to try on behalf of the client. But given the facts and circumstances here, I think putting this forth in the way to show this level of remorse, to show that he was upset and crying after the fact, I think that was part of the sentencing phase of this case. I also think the fact that Carmelo Anthony himself did not testify was very interesting given the defense in this case, and that's not something that we've talked about today. And I think that that's a very, very significant portion of the jury making this decision on murder. I think had he testified, manslaughter may have played into it a little bit more, because he would have been able to say, I felt in fear. I felt like they were coming at me. It was a split decision. And looking back at the video, I don't see what maybe I thought was happening at the time. And I think maybe those things may have played into a less serious conviction here. But the fact that he didn't testify, I don't think the jurors had any other evidence that they could hang their hat on. And we'll see if in the sentencing phase we hear more about that. But I really do think that the defense played into the fact that if he was convicted, these were certain pieces of information they needed to put out in front of this jury. So maybe the sentencing would not be as significant as it could be.
From closing arguments that we'll unpack here.
Or if we know if this is one of the attorneys, if anybody. Okay, this is not one of the attorneys.
Waiting to see if anything pops off outside the courthouse.
Paul, let's talk a little bit about what Donna touched on here. Carmelo Anthony did not testify in his own defense. Do you think his attorneys now second-guess that decision?
Well, in light of the fact that he's guilty of the highest charge, how could you not? Sure. And all I can say is if the cynical ploy here was to say, leave him off the stand, take the guilty verdict, and let's hope we get some kind of a minor victory at sentencing from this jury, I think it was a mistake. The way this went, and in light of the tenor of the defense witnesses, who, as I said earlier, some of whom were reportedly black. There's no cameras in the courtroom, but that said, reportedly black testimony from black witnesses, and testimony on the defense side, wherein at least one of them started crying. It broke for the prosecution. So at that point, if you're sitting where the defense is and you're about to continue with your case, you probably have to go back and say, hey, look, we got a Hail Mary here, and that is we put you on the stand to play for a sympathetic jury sentence.
Lots of interesting reaction on X. We'll come back to that in a moment.
Conviction feels to me like the kind of 1 in a million shot you never want to put your client in the position of. Feels to me like it would have at that point, the way things were going, to Donna's point, say, you know what, let's try to elicit some sympathy. Carmelo,
Court TV apparently
get up
melting
there
down.
And do your best. The only thing I can think of is that they felt like, for some reason, there are some facts that we have not heard that the prosecution may have been able to draw out of Carmelo that they felt would have even further hurt their case. Things like why he went to the tent, why he had the knife. There may be things that come out that we didn't get in the and this happens, that we didn't get for various evidentiary reasons in the four corners of the case that we're going to hear subsequent. Because one of the things you notice you didn't get a lot of is character stuff here. You didn't get even about Metcalf. Like one of the things I was kind of waiting for when the defense came forward was I was starting to wonder, do they have some sort of thing up their sleeve that's going to paint the victim, however unsavory that is, and I think we'd agree it is because the kid is dead, but do they have something where they're going to essentially paint the victim as somebody who almost deserved it, a bad kid who's had what was coming to him. And of course, all the reporting cuts against that, and ultimately that's not what happened. But I'm wondering if we're going to get some kind of character stuff that's going to come out that for whatever reason they decided let's not roll those dice, because the way this thing went, and you can't argue with the way it concluded, if you're sitting where the defense is, I think I might have taken the shot. Karmelo, get up there. Do your best to be sympathetic. Maybe we get the manslaughter, and as a relatively young man, you'll see the light of day again.
Very interesting. Paul Morrow, thank you very much. So, Donna Rotuno, we're waiting to hear from these attorneys, and we're also going to hear from General Jack Keane here in a moment on the downing of a U.S. Helicopter. So we want to get to that story as well. But is there a framework for sentencing here that is applicable based on this, the environment of this case, that speaks to you?
Well, I don't think that he's going to get the maximum. I don't. I think that we are going to hear him be more humanized in front of this jury now for sentencing. I do think that given the fact that manslaughter was on the table and the jury rejected that, I don't think you'll see less than 20 years. But I definitely do think that you will see a sentence where maybe this young man can see the light of day at some point in his life. One way or another, Austin Metcalf is never coming back, and this tragedy has already been compounded, given the fact that he will never be able to live again. And of course, Carmelo Anthony can, and his family can still go and visit him. And so I definitely think that the jury is going to, or the judge, whoever's going to hand down the ultimate sentence, it's going to be stiff. And I do think that it's going to be several decades. I'm just not so sure we're going to hear a life sentence here.
So in terms of how this is going to work, I imagine we're going to hear victim impact statements. The judge and the jury will hear some statements from these families, correct? And is there any opportunity on the Anthony side for them to, plead for leniency in this case for any reason?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Martha. You will. You will hear victim impact statements from his twin brother, from his parents, anybody that was close to him, if he has grandparents living. I mean, I'm sure we will hear from all of those people. They will also testify, most likely, in front of this jury if asked to do so. And Carmelo Anthony's family will have the same ability. His parents will be able to get up and talk about what life will look like without him. Now, remember, he has been out, and so he has been home with his family. That changes today upon this conviction, and he will be taken into custody, as we heard earlier. So they will talk about what it means to not have him at home, the siblings that he may have, and how it affects their lives, and how he, although alive, will be missing from their family for a long period of time as well. And so they will talk about that impact. They will talk about things in his life that are different from this, because remember, this is a 4-minute aspect of his life. And so we're going to hear about the other 17 plus years that he's lived and the things that he has done and the impact on his family. And so again, there are no winners here. So no matter what happens, this is a tragedy.
Indeed, it is. Indeed. Thank you very much, Donna Rotuno. As we wait for the sentencing phase and to get more information on how that's going to work, Donna, thank you very much. So also breaking right now, President Trump saying that the United States, quote, must respond after Iran shot down an Apache Army helicopter over the Strait of Hormuz. Posting on Truth Social, quote, the Iranians shot down.
All right, so friends, lots to unpack here together. Let me share with you, as Fox News cuts away, let me share with you some other very interesting reactions percolating over X right now. First of all, Court TV apparently melted down. Johnny Maga captured this one, and we just jumped in here live, so let me fix some of this right here and get this situated for our lower thirds. But here was what Court TV just said in reaction to this. Apparently very unhappy about the verdict, courtesy of Johnny Maga, clipped just moments ago.
I mean, questioning the jury, I asked him, how did you reach your verdict? How did you reach it so quickly? What happened? It was a 4-inch knife. He used it one time. He was pushed. I'm not saying that it was right, but what are you doing? How did you get this verdict? I'd want to know. My whole identity as a defense attorney would be in question, right? I'm questioning my identity right now, and I have nothing to do with this case. How could you come back like that? I would be enraged. I'm enraged right now. This is very upsetting. And then on top of it, to compound it, this dumb judge didn't allow cameras in the courtroom. What was your wisdom? What were you thinking? How you put on a robe? Are you that much of an imbecile that you will let cameras in the courtroom in a case like this? This is not a rape case. This is something different. This is something that's clearly the whole community is enraged, and you knew that before the trial started. So I mean, this is very upsetting.
You can see the reaction.
I mean,
Who was that guy? So he used the knife and he only used it once. So it's only murder if you stab somebody like 15 times. 2 or 3 times, it's just a couple stabs. You really need to get over, double-digit stabbings, and then it becomes actual murder. The hell kind of legal analysis is that?
I'm questioning the jury. I asked them, how did you reach your verdict?
Did you pay attention to the trial? Every single witness essentially said that Karmelo provoked the entire incident. So they got the jury instructions. I've got some of that queued up. But Carmelo Anthony is now in custody. That's how that works. You see, this was a very interesting conversation that was happening from J.D. Miles, who was in the courtroom the entire trial. He said Carmelo Anthony breaks down in tears. You can hear inside the courtroom. His bond has been extinguished, and he is in the custody of the Collin County Sheriff. As it goes, you're out on bond. You're allowed to, go back to your mansion that your parents bought for you. And as soon as you're convicted, that's the end of the game. So he's now been taken into custody. And Marianne Martinez, she reports over for the Daily Mail. And she said, an extraordinary moment just now. Verdict, guilty. Carmelo's lawyer was asked if he could take his client somewhere to pull himself together since he's bawling in the courtroom. Judge responded, Carmelo has been found guilty. What are you talking about? No. And now he's in the custody of the sheriff. He's not going anywhere. Things move differently now, says the judge. Yeah. Judge did allow Carmelo to be escorted out of the room by deputies and lawyers. We're taking a little break. And Carmelo is now back as of 9 minutes ago. Jury will return. We will begin the sentencing part of the trial now. Right now? Wow. Jurors have to decide between 5 to 99 years in prison. So in Texas, they go right to sentencing. That's very curious. In other ordeals, other trials, you'll have a pause in sentencing. Then you can often have a pre-sentence report that is drafted. So they'll go back and they'll talk to the defense. They'll talk to the prosecution. They'll do a criminal history. They'll assess certain things on various locations about the defendant and explicitly, his background, his prior history, all those things, and then they'll present it to the judge. But it looks like they're going right to sentencing today. Let's take a look at what the latest is over here, courtesy of NBC. Dallas, Fort Worth. Sentencing phase now begins. When the jury returned to the courtroom, the sentencing phase of the trial began. And I think Fox was even saying that according to their analysts, they would come back at a later time. And the media's cut away from it. So Fox is off it. OAN is off it. MS Now never even covered it. And CNN covered it in a very, very brief blurb. But so now they're in sentencing. When the jury returned back to the courtroom, the sentencing phase of the trial began. Let's come back on that and see exactly how things went down before the verdict came in. So here was the jury charge. Yeah, this got shared. This is a very nice, interesting share. Presumptions and burden of proof. We all know what beyond a reasonable doubt means. We were talking about deadly weapon, means anything that can be used to cause serious bodily injury or death. From her, murder, saying if you find evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that on or about April 2nd in Collin County, Texas, the defendant Carmelo Sincere Anthony did intentionally and knowingly cause the death of an individual, namely Austin Metcalf, by stabbing Austin with a knife, or with intent to cause serious bodily injury to him. That's a big or right there. didn't maybe intend to knowingly murder him, but did definitely intend to cause serious bodily injury, did commit an act of clearly dangerous, that would be clearly dangerous to human life by stabbing him with a knife, a deadly weapon that ultimately caused the death, then you will find that he committed murder as charged in the indictment. They did throw in at the last minute manslaughter. That was part of the closing arguments, but they did not go for that. Now, bearing in mind the foregoing instructions, if you find that he did intentionally, knowingly cause the death of an individual, namely Austin Metcalf, by stabbing him with a knife or intended to cause him seriously, then manslaughter would be the next. That's a duplicate. Now, here's self-defense. Using deadly force in Texas. You are also instructed that a person is justified in using force against another when and to the degree he reasonably believes the force is immediately necessary to protect himself against other unlawful force against him. The use of force against another is not justified in response to verbal provocation alone if the actor, in this case Karmelo, provoked the other's use or attempted use of unlawful force, unless he abandons the encounter and says, I'm leaving, I'm retreating, I'm out. He didn't do that. Or unless the other nevertheless continues or attempts to use unlawful force against him. He's also justified if the person would be justified in using force against him. And here's the big one. This is what every single witness essentially talked about, even the defense witnesses, which is why this came down so quickly. A person who has the right to be present at the location where the deadly force is used, and he didn't really even have a right to be in that tent, who has not provoked the person against whom the deadly force is used. He did. He had his hand in the backpack, gripping the knife. He said, touch me and see what happens. He didn't say, attack me with intent to kill. He didn't say, come after me with deadly force. He didn't say, use force against me that might cause serious bodily injury and then see what happens. Try to murder me and see what happens. He said, touch me. That's it. Just give me a little tap, tap, tappy, and then I'll stab you, which gives the whole game away. Saying he's not engaged in criminal activity at the time. And I think even the police officer said he's allowed to carry a weapon in there. So it may not have been a criminal charge if he was found with the 3.5-inch blade in the tent at the high school, but certainly he was in violation of school policy, and everybody knew that. In fact, there was some testimony that kids even signed documents saying we don't bring weapons to school. Don't know if he did or not. Did not see that introduced into evidence. Not required to retreat if he's allowed to use deadly force, and you need to determine whether he acted reasonably. So that's another one. Deadly force means force that is intended or known by the person using it to cause death or serious bodily injury, and the jury saw Austin Metcalf's heart just gashed open. Apparently there were shocking noises out of people's mouths when that evidence and that photograph were presented. Reasonable belief means that this person had a belief that would be held by an ordinary and prudent person. So would an ordinary and prudent person, this is an objective standard. It's not what you would have done in this particular location. It's saying, if we just step outside of your shoes, what would an ordinary, reasonable, prudent person do? Would they sit there and scream profanities? Would they reach into their bag to arm up in a foreign school's tent? And then if you're lightly touched, just stab somebody? You're also instructed jurors that it is your duty to consider all relevant facts and circumstances around the alleged killing. Was there a relationship? Now, going forward with all that in mind, if you believe from the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that Karmelo in this location did commit murder or manslaughter, but you find the evidence or have reasonable doubt thereof that he reasonably believed that deadly force, when and to the degree used, if it was immediately necessary to protect himself from the attempted use of unlawful force by Austin Metcalf, if you believe that, then you have to acquit him. You have to say your verdict is not guilty. That obviously did not happen for him. Also instructed that if you believe from the evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that at the time, place in question, Austin Metcalf or others were not using or attempting to use unlawful deadly force on the defendant, or that the defendant did not reasonably believe that his use of deadly force was immediately necessary, then you will find against the defendant on his plea of self-defense. So in all of this, you must not consider any failure of Karmelo to retreat that might be shown by the evidence if you find both that the defendant did not provoke, so Karmelo did not provoke, and Karmelo was not engaged in criminal activity. If you do not find both 1 and 2, you may consider any failure to retreat that might be shown as not relevant to the self-defense analysis. So the rest of it, evidentiary instructions, concluding instructions, you were charged that it is only from the witness stand that the jury is permitted to receive evidence. Don't look outside. Don't discuss any of this with anybody else. You are the exclusive judges here of this entire case. After you have retired to consider your verdict, you're under the charge of the bailiff. Come to your conclusion, signed by the judge. There's the verdict sheet, and we'll ultimately see if we get anything else from them in terms of photographs of the documents. So closing arguments went the following way. The defense came out and he said, all right, Mike Howard, the defense lawyer, he proceeded with his closing statements. He said, you know, Austin Metcalf, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, had no legal right to use force to eject Karmelo from the high school tent. He explained that Metcalf had the right to ask him to leave, but had no legal right to put his hands on Karmelo, noting that Karmelo was in a public place. He said, ladies and gentlemen, you know, defendants are innocent. He sits before you innocent today. The government wants this case to be about, you know, Melo could have just left. He could have. A reasonable and prudent person would have done that. Sure, he could have. I'm sure he wishes he did. Definitely now. Defense reminded the jury that they heard that the track meets are social. Kids are mixing and mingling. And Texas weather's crazy. It rains all the time. He says the prosecutor wants you to believe that he sneaked into the tent. But multiple witnesses said that they were friendly. They dapped each other up. He was even waved over. He said, put yourself in Karmelo's shoes. Karmelo saw people he knew inside the tent, and it was crazy weather. That's why he went in there. And then think about the brothers, Austin and Hunter. They're the ones that said that he needed to leave. And then Karmelo said, no one has a problem with me being here but y'all. He said it was a packed tent and described the brothers. The whole narrative has been that these two ganged up on him. We're getting more and more mad. He reminded the jury that Metcalf brothers are physically larger. Defense attorney said, do you turn your back where you can't defend yourself if their teammates jump in like he's about to get jumped by a gang? He told the jury that Karmelo remained seated, and some witnesses said the other brothers stood up. He told the jury that a shove, hit, or push is an unlawful use of force, and that is what caused him to defend himself. He says, how do you know when it's too late to defend yourself? And by the way, all these kids who testified against him, including our own witnesses, they're biased. He said, I'm not calling them liars, but they have unconscious biases. And he said, Melo had every opportunity to leave after he stabbed and killed him, but he didn't. He just stuck around. And everyone said he was crying. He's not going to die, he asked. And he said, by the way, it's not illegal. You can have up to a 5.5-inch knife, but this was not that size. And so this was all allowed. He said, Texas, by the way, doesn't require you to wait until you get hit. And so has the government ruled out your reasonable doubts? Yeah, they did. Is it reasonable to worry these kids might jump in, that Hunter might pop in to defend his brother? Yeah, it's not something that was even in the contemplation of happening based on the testimony from the witnesses. He says he doesn't mean that he came to the tent to provoke a fight. Why would he provoke a fight against a guy who's much bigger? We don't know. That's the great question. Why did he go in there and refuse to leave? He went on to say that there was no reason for animosity between the two boys and that they did not know each other. There was no evidence that Karmelo did anything but really think he was defending himself in that split second. He said it was a lateral wound and the wound was sideways. It's an awkward position to be in. So the law requires you to put yourself in his shoes and be conscious about their intentional bias. Some people lied about how close they were. So if I look at you and repeatedly tell you, defense attorney, don't touch me, I have something in my bag, that is the ultimate warning to back off. And if you just touch somebody, even if it's not deadly force, if it's just, hey, bro, it's time to leave now, that, I guess, is the new standard for self-defense. Somebody brushes you with a slight touch, stab him in the throat. He said, hold the government to the burden. Have they ruled out every possible reasonable doubt? I submit to you that they haven't. So manslaughter got added to the charges. The prosecution waived opening and they came after the defense waived their closing. The defense then did their closing. This is what the prosecutor said before the verdict came down. 10 a.m. this morning, prosecution Bill Werski says, all right, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from the defense. Now, do not let them turn a threat into a warning. Do not let them turn a taunting, provoking threat into some kind of benign warning. Very impassioned. He said, ladies and gentlemen, what's not important is motive. What should be is mindset. Carmelo Anthony, seated here, he took a knife to a track meet. Not supposed to do that. He had a secret. He kept it hidden. He was the only one with a knife that day. The only person. Everyone knows you shouldn't bring one. He was always going to come out on top that day, no matter what. He said, you don't get to meet a shove with a stab. Okay, that's just how it is. It's a shove, whether it happened or not, how it happened or not, up for debate. You heard various testimony about that. We read through it at the trial. But you can't meet a shove with a stab, okay? Especially if you go in there and you provoke the shove, prosecutor says. And that's what you hear from all these witnesses, every single person who came up here, that you can't provoke yourself into using deadly force. He says, I know it's not easy. This is a hard case for sure. It's a tragedy. We got a dead kid and another kid's life is ruined for what? But I'm telling you the law, it's crystal clear. Here's a question. Why didn't he just walk away? You had a chance to walk away and abandon the encounter, but you didn't. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you got the jury charge. We have alleged 2 ways to commit murder. You don't have to agree on which method, whether it's intentional or clearly dangerous. If you wanted to go in there and intentionally murder him, that's one way. But if you're acting something and doing something that's clearly dangerous, as long as the state has proven that, it's unanimous. It's murder. Now, let's talk about the lesser included charge, the manslaughter that we just added in here at the last minute. He says, you don't even need to reach that. Just to be clear, you got all these documents in front of you. They're very confusing. But you don't need to even get to manslaughter unless all of you acquit him of murder. All of you. And if you think Austin impaled himself on Carmelo's knife, as the testimony was from the defense, well, what if Karmelo just held the knife in front? And then Austin lunged at him and impaled himself on the knife. Okay, if you believe that, based on what we heard, then you can find him guilty of manslaughter. But that's not what happened. We heard it. Multiple witnesses said repeatedly, Carmelo provoked it. Carmelo murdered him. Prosecutor then explained 4 reasons why the self-defense theory doesn't apply. He said, I want to go through the elements of self-defense. Provocation, a force disparity, reasonable belief, and immediate necessity. All of those fail, and they all break his defense claim. He explained that you don't get to provoke someone and that you can't meet force a shove with a deadly force with a stab. He said Carmelo had no reason to believe that he was in danger. He said, I submit to you, any prudent person would not have plunged a knife into Austin's chest and gashed his heart open. He again reminded the jury that Carmelo had a secret knife on the day of the stabbing and that Austin had no defensive wounds. He wasn't fighting with the knife. He had never even saw it coming. He was just standing there. He got stabbed in the heart. He says, jury, it's clear. Carmelo had a guilty mindset because of the way in which he fled after the stabbing. And ladies and gentlemen, you heard about the evidence. You heard from the witnesses, particularly as it pertained to provocation. You heard Austin saying, I didn't want to talk about it, but I have to right now. I don't want to talk about this. This is the prosecutor. He says there were various witnesses. They came out, they gave a bunch of testimony and various statements about both Austin and Carmelo's demeanor on the day of the stabbing. He referenced how Carmelo was described as looking suspicious, that Hunter, the brother, was allegedly uninvolved, and that Austin, though frustrated, said repeatedly, he did not want to fight. I'm not going to fight you at a track meet, dude. What are you kidding? Prosecutor then began reading direct quotes from prior witness testimony. specifically the parts where witnesses said that Karmelo swore at the students, calling them B's and P's and y'all ain't gonna do anything to me. All witnesses told you the same thing that we presented, and even some of the defense witnesses said the same. It's murder. Austin did not want to fight. Karmelo provoked it. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't let the defense swindle you. Don't be sloppy in your thinking that it's a tragedy for Karmelo. It's not a tragedy for him. It's the decisions that he made and that he has come to terms with. Now, ultimately, this case is about accountability. What kind of community do you want to live in? So hold this man accountable for the decisions he's made and send the message that this will not be tolerated in our community. I beg you to make justice swift in this case. And boy, was it swift. That came out very, very quickly. And so let's check the latest updates. So we got closing arguments. Then the jury left the room at 10:50 a.m., began their deliberations. 3 choices: murder, innocence, or manslaughter. Murder's 5 to 99 years. If convicted of manslaughter, 2 to 20. That is no longer relevant. We saw the jury instructions that were released, specifically about provocation. And we've got deliberations underway. The verdict came in quickly. You can see how fast that was. Expected to be read, we read it. Carmelo Anthony and his attorneys entered the courtroom, his parents with him in a side room while the jury deliberated. Mom appears to be crying. Carmelo's demeanor appeared stoic. He did not speak to the attorneys and continued to look down or ahead. Moments later, Hunter Metcalf, Austin's twin brother, was escorted into the courtroom. He was seated with his parents in the second row of the gallery. He was later moved to the court coordinator in the front row. Right before 2:30 p.m., Judge John Roach and the jury entered the courtroom saying, "We're about to get a verdict. I know it's emotional, people in the courtroom, but I will hold you in contempt if you express your emotions here. So don't even think about mouthing off one way or another." The alternates were also brought in with the jury. They have not taken part in any way in the deliberations. Then, all of a sudden, guilty. Unanimous verdict in less than 3 hours. Carmelo Anthony now guilty. Same jury is going to have sentencing. Now, the defense was going to make the argument during sentencing, said a prosecutor, of sudden passion, which is a situation when someone is in a state of such emotion that based on something that just happened that they don't have time to cool off. And if the jury agrees with that, it could be reduced to a second-degree felony, which lowers the punishment range from 2 to 20 years, which I don't buy that at all. That's the same analogy that we've talked about here before, where you are walking in on your wife with some dude and you just start stabbing people. Okay, that's a crime of passion. You don't walk in with a knife and say, touch me and see what happens. This was much more premeditated. He came with a knife. He was causing an altercation. He wanted a touch. He didn't say threaten me, attempt to kill me and see what happens, attempt to cause me serious bodily harm and see what happens. He said, touch me, see what happens. Touch, stab. So Karmelo remained emotionless when the verdict was reached and read. He was then escorted soon after outside of the courtroom. Family and supporters were tearful. Mother was seen weeping in the gallery. Hunter Metcalf leaned forward in his seat as Anthony was found guilty of murdering his twin brother. Judge comes back after the verdict is read. Brief recess, 2:37. Jury comes back in for sentencing. 2:45, judge says, "Carmelo, back to the courtroom, please." Maria is inside the courtroom, saying he appears shocked with his mouth open and his eyes wide. He was physically taken to his chair by defense attorney Mike Howard. Can't believe it. He had a bunch of bad people around him, man. I would suspect. I can't confirm that. But if there was a plea deal offered, he should have taken it, obviously, based on the testimony that came out. His defense team, I don't think they had much to work with, so it's hard to say that they were bad defense attorneys, but they presented bad witnesses, and they were asking questions of their own witnesses that were horrific for their client. So I don't know why they presented them at all, other than they had nobody else to present. but he was being elevated. They were saying this guy is a pillar of the community, and he was under attack by white kids. And so he was absolutely going to walk free. They did the same thing that they did during George Floyd, which is to try to persuade the outcome of this, to have people outside the courtroom, to intimidate jurors. Of course, none of this was broadcast, which maybe would have made the verdict even quicker. But Guerrero reported that Anthony's eyes remained downcast. Howard sat with his arms around Anthony, who appeared to be in disbelief. Can't believe that happened. Well, here's another one. Sentencing has now started. And when the jury returned to the courtroom, trial restarted for sentencing. Both the prosecution and the defense waived their opening. The state immediately rested. And Karmelo, Anthony's mother, her name is Kayla Hayes. She was called to the stand. Defense attorney offered her water and tissues. So tell us about your son, Carmelo. She says, he's my oldest. He'll always be my baby. I love him very much. She begins weeping on the stand. Carmelo also crying in the courtroom. Question for mother. Do you believe that Mello, now calling him Mello, all right, regrets what he did? Yes, I know my son, and he's very sorry for what he did. Well, that's interesting. So no longer doing the self-defense thing. Is there anything you want to tell the jury? Please have mercy on my son. Yeah, you love your son and you realize you're still going to be a part of his life, right? Yes, I do. Defense rests at 2:51. Couple of additional updates. Brief recess. Before the break, the judge asked the bailiff to take Carmelo from the courtroom. He walked with his head low, at one point shaking his head, glancing up at his parents before being removed from the courtroom. And then again, the parents are also emotionless of Austin's parents, as Anthony was escorted from the courtroom. So Austin Metcalf parents are just kind of stoic. As of a few moments ago, another person called Jared Patterson releases a statement. He's a Texas representative for the district. Jared Patterson released this on June 19th, which is 10 days from now. He said the murder of Austin Metcalf was a senseless and heartbreaking tragedy that forever changed the lives of his family, friends, and community. Nothing can restore the life that was taken or ease the unimaginable pain of losing a child. Today's outcome of a murder conviction is justice served. I commend the prosecutors, witnesses, and jurors, each of whom participated in serving their community and rendering justice for Austin. While no outcome can erase this pain, it is our hope that this moment allows the Metcalf family and our community to begin the difficult process of healing. And moving forward, we continue to mourn Austin's loss and pray for healing for his family and all those affected by this tragedy. Yeah, and it is a tragedy. It's totally senseless killing, completely unnecessary. But this is justice, and you can't just stab somebody in the heart and just say he touched me and make up a self-defense claim and then try to reframe the entire ordeal as a racial thing, hoping that the same thing that happened to George Floyd and Derek Chauvin will happen to you and you'll get exonerated for it. So let's take a look at what Fox is reporting, and I'll queue up some other reactions over here.
That the lawyer, Carmelo Anthony's lawyer, said, "Judge, can I take him out?" It was inaudible where he was asking to take him. The judge said, you know, he is now convicted of murder. Things move differently now. He said you can take him to the back for a little bit, but the judge making it known that things have changed now.
All right, last question for you, Marianne. While you're speaking with us on screen, we can see some of what's going on outside the courtroom. You're standing outside the courtroom now. You've come in and out every day, so I know you know what's happening outside, what's happening online around this case. Was this courtroom, in effect, sequestered from this noise? Did it feel inside that courtroom that this type of narrative, this type of protest, this type of emotion made its way in any way into this case? Or was this case devoid of all this outside noise and strictly focused on the facts?
Well, I think the judge and the lawyers did their best to try to keep the outside noise out. However, the defense did, they were a little coy about doing it, but they did things throughout the trial, like instead of calling the state, they would often refer to them as the government. The lawyer, Mike Howard, Carmelo Anthony's lawyer, he brought up ICE immigration raids. So there were some moments where the defense certainly injected outside noise into the case, but for the most part, I do think that they've done everything they can to sort of limit some of this noise, which is really hard to do, quite frankly.
Yeah, I would imagine. Marianne Martinez of the Daily Mail, you've done excellent work throughout this trial. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to stay on this breaking news. Texas teen Carmelo Anthony has been found guilty in the murder of Austin Metcalf. Right now, we are waiting to learn what his sentence will be, and we're going to be all over it. Stay with us.
All right, so that was just Marianne Martinez, I do believe, who was on with Fox. And she is reporting. We got some other interpretations of the sentencing phase, which we can see right here. The only person to take the stand in the punishment phase for Carmelo was the mom. She begged for mercy. Please have mercy on my son, she sobbed as she looked at the jury. Both sides have closed their cases. The court is now working on a charging document and will return. Guilty verdict. Carmelo wanted to get out of the courtroom. They obviously did not let that happen. He is in the custody of the sheriff at this time. And where was my other post? So this is apparently what was happening at 3:05 outside the courtroom.
The defendant is black. The judge as well in this case. It was not a case about race, but you cannot deny that just the facts of the case and what we've seen play out since then and what we're happening now is because the defendant is black, the victim is white, and that's the bottom line. But again, this is what I alluded to when I said this has brought out what's bubbling right beneath the surface.
Wow. That guy in the American flag shirt better be careful. Looks like he's about to violently attack him. I'm being facetious, obviously. But wow, it's like, no, I didn't provoke you at all. I'm just bouncing around in front of your face. Maybe that looks like self-defense to him, and maybe he can stab him in the chest and then claim racism or whatever. What the hell is going on out there, man? Shout out to that guy. Talk about restraint. That I don't know that I would have, man, if that's somebody who's bouncing around in my face like that. So that's continuing on. I think we might have a little bit of a lull in some updates. Let me check a couple other sources that were doing some good reporting and see if we can hang tight until we get some sentencing. It might be a while, so we'll see. But of course, now he's been found guilty. CBS News is reporting on this. Jury reached its verdict. Dozens of witnesses testifying. Trial goes to the sentencing phase, 99 years at the upper end, or life, 5 to 99. That'll be the next interesting decision point to see how much time he gets. He's young, so the judge will consider that, weigh that into the decision, saying, you know, there's a youthful element to this, and maybe there's some hope at including him back into society at some point. This is a recap of everything that went down. This is the DA's opening argument in a little bit of a photo from what happened inside today. That's the opening argument. And if you're just catching up on this, many students, even the defense's own witness, said this was not an act of self-defense. It was lethal force against non-lethal force. Defense attorney saying he was only protecting himself because they were trying to throw him out of the tent. Here's another photograph of the track on camera in front of the jurors. Multiple other students talked about what they observed. One student said that he saw what appeared to be someone being pushed or punched, though he acknowledged on cross-examination that he only had a limited view and that his recollections did not actually match the evidence that was presented during the trial. Widespread public attention, and that's what CBS has for us. Of course, they were in the courtroom for a lot of this as well. So let me check a couple other sources and see what else is happening on this. While it's interesting that most of the media is not covering it at all. I think we've seen MS Now didn't cover it at all. Okay, here's a counter reaction from this guy called Tariq. He said, the white supremacists, I guess that's people who don't want to get stabbed in the chest, I guess, pride themselves on self-defense laws, and they do a complete flip when it's time to use those laws to protect black people. It wasn't self-defense. If he was under attack, we would all analyze it accordingly. 7 minutes ago, this guy is having a rage quit right now and just going nuts. Who is this dude? 373,000 followers, Tariq Nasheed, melting down on X. How can anyone demand public confidence in a judicial system that exonerates the executioners of fleeing black victims? What is he talking about? Exonerate? What? Derek Chauvin went to prison for multiple decades for not doing anything. George Floyd died on his own. The state's own witness said the same. Karmelo verdict isn't just a miscarriage of justice. It is an absolute delegitimization of the American legal apparatus. 8 minutes ago, 7 minutes ago, 4 minutes ago. Just burning through it. Wow. So he's having a rough day today. And just doing a quick scroll to see if there's anything else on this. But it looks like we might be back to the waiting game. Let's check with JD Miles once again. Judge is going to work on the charge. And you can hear Carmelo's tears from inside the courtroom. Yeah, so a lot of that confidence gets wiped out pretty quickly. We got Fox News back with some commentary
to the right
here.
of me and to the left of me. So now, before we were seeing them sort of lined up, now they're basically dispersed in these small groups right now. But I mean, these protesters are on both sides, definitely mostly Carmelo Anthony. I see signs saying also justice for Austin. So you have Austin Metcalf supporters here too. As for what's going on inside the courtroom, Will, there hasn't been cameras allowed inside the courtroom, so we've had to rely on our local reporters who are in there. The media capacity, it's been limited, but what's going on right now, the same jury that is, they're going to decide this sort of sentencing and punishment phase because he has been found guilty of murder. He now faces 99 to life behind bars. They have to do this sort of mini trial. Both sides waived doing opening statements, and we heard, as we've been talking about, from Carmelo Anthony's mother, who was in tears, basically begging the jury to have a sentencing, I guess, a lighter sentencing in her favor for her son, who again was 17 years old when this happened, but he's been found guilty of murder. Will prosecutors in this case, they were able to explain to jurors why Carmelo Anthony on that day, he was in another team's tent and being told something from our security. No, we're good. He was in another team's tent. He was asked to leave. Witnesses said that Carmelo provoked the attack, and now we are out here live again. Tensions seem to have calmed down, but we're going to keep an eye, Will, on what goes out here live. But definitely a lot of deputies on standby.
Okay, Brooke Taylor. Good work. Thank you for that report. Joining me now is George Washington University law professor and Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley and criminal defense attorney here in Dallas, Texas, Todd Shapiro. Professor, I'd love to start with you. And I know this isn't a very deep legal analysis, but it has been surprising. In fact, I would call it shocking that this case has drawn such public interest. At least it has been so divisive in the public conversation. Its fact pattern is black and white. And I don't mean black and white in terms of race. I mean clear as night and day. And It's such an odd case for everyone to rally around, so why don't we at least do this? I see the signs here that are being held, one of which reads, "Self-defense is not a crime." What do you say to someone that believes that's what this case was about?
Well, this is an incredible disconnect because this case is not about race. It's about rage. It's about someone who went into that tent with a deadly weapon and plunged it into the chest of an unarmed teenager. Now, these are both young people. Both of their lives were ruined. One's life was ended. The other is going to spend a considerable time in jail. But there are parts of our society that look through this framing of race because of the different races of these two individuals. Otherwise, this is a fairly conventional case, and it's not a particularly difficult one. The defense's own witness really blew up on them by saying that, yeah, Anthony was the one who provoked this moment, this confrontation. That was really a serious blow for the defense. It's also a surprise, as a criminal defense attorney, there are times when you have to be honest with your client and say, look, we can try to see if we can knock this down to a misdemeanor, but the odds are against it. Or we can do a Hail Mary throw and have you on the stand. And that is very high risk. But it may be the only chance you have to try to persuade a few of these jurors that they should knock this down to a misdemeanor. That obviously
he should have
didn't happen.
testified. Kyle
so when you
Rittenhouse
look at
did it.
sentencing
We
here,
had our doubts
there's
about
two
that, but he was very
dynamics that are
convincing.
possible as a criminal defense attorney. One is,
You got to have an
this is a
alternative
jury
theory.
that
Every
rendered
other
the
witness
verdict,
said
and maybe
repeatedly
some
that you
are going
did
to
it.
want to show some mercy. But there's also a countervailing dynamic that they've crossed that emotional Rubicon. They were given the choice of a misdemeanor, and they rejected it, and rejected it fairly quickly. And so they could still stay that course and say, no, this is murder, and we want a murder-heavy sentence.
Professor, you're the second attorney, including Don Rotuno today, that has questioned why the defense did not put Carmelo Anthony on the stand. Todd Shapiro is here with us in Dallas, Texas, a criminal defense attorney here in Dallas and Collin County. I know you disagree that putting Carmelo Anthony on the stand would have been a benefit. The argument I hear from both the professor and Don Rotuno is you had nothing to lose. You had bad facts, and you were losing the case.
Well, you don't know. There's no scoreboard in the courtroom, right? They don't take accounting of the jurors 3/4 of the way through the trial. So you may have an internal feeling that we're not doing well, but you have no idea how your message is potentially radiating with that jury. Putting the defendant on the stand is always a very dicey proposition, as we've all agreed to. Putting a 19-year-old black young man on a witness stand and setting him up to get absolutely filleted by one of the best prosecutors in the United States is a absolute no-brainer. Absolutely not. Would never have thought about it. Can't imagine it was ever even brought up in their discussions. They had to try to find a way to mitigate this situation without putting their client in the crosshairs, without putting Karmelo on the stand. I think it would have been a huge disaster. And at the time they made the decision, they had no idea if they were behind. I know we all thought they were, but there's no scoreboard.
Professor, if it's true, as we all suspect, this was a fairly clear case with really bad facts. Do you suspect the defense ever entertained or tried to seek a plea deal? I guess the prosecution could have rebuffed it and said, no way, this is a slam dunk and the family wants to take this all the way. But that seems to me the escape hatch that should have been pursued by the defense.
No, I would be astonished if the defense did not try to see what type of plea they could get out of this. But I don't imagine that the prosecutors would be that giving in terms of a plea, because the defense usually get a plea when you can get on the table something that throws a really wrench into the works here, that I can do this, I can call this witness, you can't really be certain about a conviction. On this one, most prosecutors would view this as a lead pipe cinch for conviction. Now, it could get knocked down but to a misdemeanor. And I think the point is still a good one. That's absolutely true. There's no scoreboard in this trial. But there is a danger when defense counsel universally tend to keep their clients off the stand because the risks are so considerable. But in my view, the risks on this were already sky high. Now, the real question here is how the defense is going to deal with this. I can't imagine that the mother is the only defense witness. If that's the case, I would be floored.
We've heard that.
Yeah, because
everybody seems to be floored by that.
Yeah, this is where you need to bring in siblings, friends, coaches, saying that whatever happened here, it was the heat of the moment. This is not who he is, because that's his only hope right now, to knock down this sentence.
Really quickly, Todd.
Sure. Well, as it pertains to plea bargain, this fits the course of this particular elected DA in Collin County. Many high-profile or exceptionally complicated cases, he wants the community to decide. He wants, it's not going to be a plea bargain from my office. We're not going to offer anything in a case like this. We're going to present our case. We believe we're prepared. We believe we have the facts. We believe this crime occurred. But we want our members of our community, his peers, even though some of his supporters will always say that he did not have his peers on that jury, but they are the citizens of this county that get to make that decision.
Right. Okay. Excellent stuff. Todd Shapiro, Professor Jonathan Turley, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to keep all eyes still on that courtroom in McKinney, Texas, on the sentencing phase for Carmelo Anthony. But coming up, primary day in Maine. We know.
All right, so let's swap back over to some other reactions. So Brooke Taylor posted this not too long ago. Same conversation. His mom had mascara down her face while she cried and asked the jury to please have mercy on my son. And it did feel like it was a very fast sentencing presentation, and it's over. So it was only mom. There was nobody else who was brought forward. I'm sure there were other people. The prosecution didn't have much to say. The defense did not have much to say. We saw J.D. Miles was out, and Brianna Mello. You remember Brianna Mello, formerly with InfoWars, who's amazing. She said she got this video out there on the scene. This is from Dominique Alexander reacting after the conviction. And this is one of the individuals on Carmelo Anthony's team, so this should be rich.
I speak on behalf of myself, Minister Dominique Alexander. I speak on behalf of myself as president of the Next Generation Action Network. The Next Generation Action Network wanted to respect this process, to be able to make sure that nobody said that the Next Generation Action Network obstructed this process, interfered in this process. But what this process did is shown that black lives do not matter in Collin County.
Come on.
It showed us that time and time in American history, it has shown us to remove emotions from yet the law. This trial showed that it put emotions over the law. After Trayvon Martin and so many countless names, it has shown us that black life is not safe in Collin County.
We had a national mourning for George Floyd. We had Jacob Frey leaning down, sobbing over his casket. They treated him like a saint. They stopped the entire nation. Derek Chauvin and 3 other cops who had nothing to do with it were all convicted before the trial even started. So the fact that they just constantly make this about race is just ridiculous. It was a stabbing. There were black young men and women, presumably, who testified, minors. We saw another post from another reporter saying 4 out of 6 of them who testified for the prosecution were in fact black. So how is it racism if black people are saying he provoked it, he stabbed him unnecessarily?
It showed us that they did not listen to the law. It showed clearly that a judge interfered in this process. What? It showed very clearly that a black boy was allowed, not one black soul on a jury.
Yeah, they were booted off for various reasons. You don't just get to create a jury based on race, okay? We're supposed to not be racist. So you're supposed to have jurors who can be fair, neutral, and impartial. And if there were black individuals who were going through jury selection during voir dire, and there was a reason to strike them for cause, and there was a lot of reporting about why that was valid, there were some reports saying that some black jurors were saying, I can't convict a black man. Something, give or take, very similar to that. Many reports about that. So that is not a fair and impartial person. And I wouldn't want a white person who is saying, I couldn't convict a white guy to be on the jury either, or I'm going to convict a black guy. It's not supposed to be that way. Now, jurors lie all the time, like we saw the juror in the George Floyd trial who lied and said, no, I had no love of George Floyd at all. Turns out he was actually at George Floyd protest with a get your knee off our necks shirt on, and they let him onto the jury. Is that the type of juror that this guy would prefer to be on there?
An all white jury convicted him in 2 to 3 hours.
It was pretty unequivocal.
We know that they did not prove their case.
The jury doesn't agree with you.
They are currently sentencing Carmelo Anthony, but we know that the Next Generation Action Network put the first $10,000 towards an appellate attorney. And we will fight Collin County like hell.
You're going to need a lot more than that.
I respected this process.
No, you didn't.
I allowed and called for peace in this process. But Black America should be very upset about what went on today. We are. Now, before all of the internet lawyers and before all of the interpretation of the situation, I'm only an advocacy leader. I'm not an attorney. I can only help families be able to navigate these processes when they find themselves in this type of situation.
All right. So they have plenty of money. I don't know if it really went to the lawyers or not, but this is his Give, Send, Go account. They wanted $1.3 million. They raised $626,000, which is a nice chunk of change. We also saw they moved into a mansion. They reduced his bond. He got every benefit of the doubt. And people are still donating. Lots of money coming in, I guess, for the appellate lawyer. So anonymous, 30 bucks, anonymous, 25 bucks, a $50 right there. Another anonymous. Money's pouring in after the verdict came down. And we'll see what they argue on appeal. You can guarantee it's going to be, this is racism. The jurors were struck illegitimately. And I would imagine that that record is as tight as could possibly be, that there was a good reason for their strikes, although we don't know much about it. 8 minutes ago, shortly after 3:30 Central, Carmelo Anthony returned to the courtroom. Anthony Karmelo was physically shaking and being held by a female defense attorney. Yeah. Judge John Roach was informed that the state agreed to the addition of sudden passion as the jury now continues with the sentencing phase. It wasn't a sudden passion. He was seated there with his hand on the knife, goading and instigating. Touch me and see what happens. Meaning that the defense can now argue that the murder was committed when the defendant was in an intense emotional state triggered by immediate provocation from the victim. Spare me. Spare me. During voir dire, which is jury selection, Prosecutor Dewey Mitchell explained that sudden passion is a situation when someone is in such a state of emotion based on something that just happened that they don't have time to cool off. He provoked it. If the jury agrees with the sudden passion argument, the charge is reduced to a second-degree felony, which lowers the punishment range to 2 to 20 years. So the jury is going to be brought back in for what amounts to a mini trial. Opening statements from both sides. A video will be played for the jury about sudden passion. Give me a break, dude. After which they will deliberate and decide on punishment. Carmelo Anthony has chosen not to testify in this section of the trial as well. He can't anymore. He's apparently shaking. So that's going to get started, and we'll keep our eye on that. But I'm not real sure why the state made that argument. The state agreed with the addition of sudden passion. You guys just got the W. You guys just got him on intentional murder or, knowing murder, knowing homicide. And sudden passion reduces that. So we'll see. And honestly, I could see the jury kind of splitting on that, just saying, well, we got him on that one. And now we'll show some leniency and some mercy because mom came and cried and he's shaking in the courtroom. But it doesn't feel like a sudden passion to me. From the testimony that we saw, he came in there, he had his hand in the backpack with the knife, and was goading, screaming at them, saying things like, y'all are bees and y'all ain't going to do anything to me and I'm not going anywhere. Can you please leave? No. Please leave? No. Multiple times. Then was getting so into it that Austin Metcalf had to say to him specifically and explicitly, I'm not going to fight you at a track meet, dude. We're not going to do this right now. And so what is the sudden passion? There was a touch on the shoulder and a knife came out. It's like he was spring-loaded, ready to do that. So that's an interesting development. Don't know why the prosecution did that. But you know what's so curious about this is there's not even a mention of this. I mean, it was a brief mention at the start of our stream here from CNN. I haven't seen anything since. They're talking about Trump at the Knicks game on MS Now. If this was inverted, just to be clear, if it was a white kid who stabbed a black kid and claimed self-defense, this would be national news. It would be just like Derek Chauvin all over again. But when it's the opposite, certain media entities just don't want to talk about it. It's only useful to them if it goes one direction. We talked about both. We talked about Kyle Rittenhouse. We're much more honest than they are. But they don't want to talk about it at all. And so let's pause for a quick moment. Let's let the trial develop a little bit. Let's see what you say about all of this. Fox has cut away from it. If they cut back to it, we'll come back on it. I've got some other topics as well that we had queued up here because I was not expecting a verdict to come this quickly. But here are a couple of other comments from you, my friends. Hey, man, thank you for that. Wow, we got a bunch of very nice donos here. From Rick D. Yeah, this is exactly right. Jack Mack is explaining this. And so we'll come back to some trial coverage. We just got to wait for something to happen. Jack Mack, good to see you. Thank you for being here for 29 months. Says, sad all around. Justice was served, though. It is sad. You know, it's not like, you know, we're not doing like cartwheels and handsprings over it. It's like, it's the right outcome. We would have been much more infuriated if it was not a conviction. But it is a tragedy. It's like, why is this happening? Why did he feel the need to bring a knife to a track meet and then go instigate a crowd and provoke somebody and then stab him in the chest? What's this problem that is developing? Why does that need to happen? It's a major, major tragedy. Thank you, Jack Mack. Hey, Darren McNeil, 34 months, Darren. Thank you for that. Hello, everyone. Cheryl Patrick just joined up as a supporter. Great to have you, Cheryl Patrick. Thank you for joining us. We had a walk and talk this morning for our membos. Rick D shared this one about Arizona news. Thank you, Rick D, for that. But we'll come back to that. We'll save that for later. Biology always wins. What's going on? Bringing in 5 new membos. Thank you, Biology. Don Legay, Artie Ray. We got Lars Corvier. We got Kimmy Cash, Catherine Everlard in the house. And Court Watch. And thank you, Biology. Court Watcher, Denisha. Hey, man, thank you, Denisha, for watching. Court Watcher, man. We love watching the watchers here, including the courts. I've been watching you for at least 4 years. Court Watcher, that is a long time. We've been through a lot together. A lot. And so we're grateful for that, Court Watcher. Thank you for that. We got Don Legay. Hey, for you, Rob, Karmelo doesn't need to worry about donos anymore. I might donate some cool... gosh, Don Legay. Well, he might be thirsty after this trial. Might be thirsty after that. And apparently he's not in a good way right now. So a lot of confidence, walking around like a rap star or something like that. You know, everybody's like surrounding him like, yeah, you're a hero. Then all of a sudden it changes once you realize what you've done. Don Legay, thank you for the nice dono. Thank you for being a membo. KC Cat says, nope, it's 25 to 99. 5 years and up was an option for manslaughter. Murder is 25 to 99. So I must have read something wrong there. Thank you, KC Cat, for the clarification on that. That was a rhyme. Thank you, Casey Cat. Londo, he claimed self-defense, so he admitted to the murder, claiming it was justified. Yes, that's what an affirmative defense is. Yes, I did the thing. Evidence was resounding that he did it. He admitted it. It was on video. Multiple witnesses said it happened. But he was saying he was allowed to stab him. Then all the witnesses claimed it was not justified. So how is this so hard? It's not actually at all. Yeah, it's not. Even the defense witnesses said that he provoked and that it was murder and that he was in the wrong. Like, multiple people said that. He could have taken the stand. Kyle Rittenhouse took the stand. We were all going, oh, gosh, don't do it. But we had those terrible lawyers, Binky Binger, remember Binger, the prosecutors, who nobody liked, and the other giant fella who was backing him up. But Kyle Rittenhouse and his defense team called that, right? The defense attorney in that location, this is why it's good to have a local defense attorney, is because they know what the juries look like. They know what the vibe is of the community. And Rittenhouse's lawyer said specifically that there's no way we cannot have him testify. We have to have him testify because people in this jurisdiction want to hear from him and be able to put some authenticity and some credibility to the story. So he didn't make that call. And I mean, I think he would have been probably shredded up on the stand, which is why they made the decision not to do it. Tim Jake, what's up? Welcome, new membo friends. Rose Anna in the house. Texas Cat here, welcome. Smokers Haven, what's up, Eugene Nicholas? Manuel Ferreira, we got Dee Dee, we got Saran, Wisconsinite, Al, and J-Lo in the house, courtesy of Tim Jake. Tim Jake, thanks for bringing in new membos. We were getting our car repaired this morning, so we did a walk and talk for our membos this morning. Rick D, the defense invoked their right to a penalty phase in front of the jury, and they started it immediately after the verdict. Man, I didn't see that. Thank you, Rick. The state immediately rested their side of the penalty phase. The defense only called Karmelo's mother as a witness, then rested. And that happened, yeah. That went down. So we saw all of that. Cables are still on commercial, long commercial. See if we got any other updates from Dallas-Fort Worth. Doesn't look like we do. Nothing dropped that was new. And if you missed the verdict, if you missed the closing arguments, hit the rewind button because we covered all of that. So mini trial should hopefully be starting soon. And this doesn't look so busy out there. Is there any audio to this? This says this is live. Doesn't look like there's a lot of protesting. Doesn't look like there's any rioting going on. Part of the reason we wanted to hop on here was just to check the cables to see if there was going to be anything. As you can see, One America News. I can change these now and actually pick some channels versus just having the BBC up there, but they're not covering it. Fox is on commercial. The rest of them are all get your pharmaceuticals and learn about your lineage. But once that comes back, we'll check it out. But all right, so thank you, friends. Very good stuff. Mel Snare. Was there any instruction to the jury about Carmelo Anthony not having to testify, not being held against him? There was. Yeah, I think I saw that, but I probably skipped over it. And I did see that. Let's pull that back up so we can confirm while we're here. Where the heck did it go? It's right over here. All right, so yeah, pretty sure she shared that with us, or I saw it somewhere else, but yeah, it was in there. Let's take a look. And let me see if I can get rid of this little blurb. So she shared the document cloud. Thank you for doing that. The offense, mental states, definition of manslaughter. Okay, Fox News is coming back. If you find both 1 and 2, I don't think it's there. Yeah, the fact that he has been arrested, confined, and indicted shouldn't have impact. Yeah, here it is. You were instructed that the defendant may testify, there it is, in his own behalf if he chooses to do so, but if he elects not to do so, that fact cannot be taken by you as a circumstance against him or prejudice him in any way. He has elected not to testify, and so therefore you are instructed that you cannot and must refer to or allude to that fact throughout your deliberations or take it into consideration for any purpose whatsoever. Maybe we did read that. But yeah, so jury said can't hold that against him, which is, of course, the law. So it made it in there. Mel Snare, are you looking for reasons to appeal? Let's see. Let's see what Fox is saying about this. We've got some other reporting here. and get that
Why
audio
it was
on.
a rallying point cause. And I know that you said it's because Carmelo Anthony is black, but I think
Sentencing
there's another element
underway.
as well.
Who
It's
is this
because Austin Metcalf was white. If
Not
the
sure.
roles had been reversed and Carmelo Anthony were the victim, this would be a national story and it would revolve obviously around the issue of race. But because it's in reverse, it's the oddest case. The victim is white, and yet there are people rallying for the murderer. We can say that now because he is a convicted murderer. And it really makes you wonder, what is in the minds and the hearts of those rallying for a murderer?
This is not new. This was true. We have OJ jurors now saying that we knew he was guilty, but we had to feel the way we felt in order to provide some type of balance for perceived past injustice. We've got to get past that. I think our community will rise up and
So bad guys
accept
today
this.
need to get off because of bad guys in the past?
You can always find people who feel that way. The good news, I pray this is good news, is that this is a dwindling feeling and the activists and the troublemakers will not rule today.
I hope that's true. Online and in the streets outside the courthouse today, we hope is the exception and not the rule, what we'll see here on the streets of America. Really quickly, now comes a more difficult phase. The sentencing phase is not as cut and dried. It is not solely up to reason and logic. It is up to humanity and emotion and the judgment of what is right for Carmelo Anthony.
Something around 30 or 40 years sounds about right. 10 is way too light. Life just doesn't seem right. He was 17. I'm going to take calls tomorrow from people asking them what they think is just. He should not be at the restaurant of his choice by his 30th or even 40th birthday when Austin Metcalf is dead in the ground.
That's a fascinating exercise. I'll be curious what your audience has to say. And by the way, we'd love to hear from you, our audience as well, on the Will Kane social accounts. What is justice? What is the right sentence for Carmelo Anthony? We hope you set your DVRs and never miss an episode of the Will Kane Show where we get to the heart of the matter from the heart of America. It's now time for...
All right, so the 5 just kicked off over there. Not sure how much they'll be covering this or have any of the latest reporting on this. So we'll jump back in and we'll see if we got any updates on the sentencing phase. Not seeing anything. We'll check in with a couple of X accounts from people in the courtroom. Sudden Passion, as we just discussed, has been added back in. Let's refresh Mary Martinez. As of 5 minutes ago, from Mary Martinez. Back in court after a break, lawyers and judge have been working on the charging document the jury in Carmelo Anthony trial will be using to determine his sentence. Carmelo had been out of the courtroom and returned a few minutes ago. When he sat down at the defense table, he was shaking in his chair. And I wish he wasn't going to prison, but I also wish he wouldn't have stabbed Austin Metcalf and killed him. He was trembling so bad, a woman who was part of his defense team and was sitting behind him put her hands on his shoulders to calm him down. So yeah, he's having a breakdown. And this happens. This happens in court. It definitely happens. All right, so Fox News is talking about the Knicks. One America News talking about border security. CNN's talking about the Apache helicopter. And MS Now, who knows what the hell they're talking about. All right, so things might be kind of coming to a close in terms of new updates on the day, at least until all of this sentencing stuff is settled. Nothing else from JD Miles. All right, so we'll keep our eye on this. We've got a couple other segments queued up. I've got an election fraud segment, and we've got the Boykin judge segment here queued up, and a criminal referral for fraud, courtesy of the president, all queued up. So stick around for those. Before we move on, let's take some other comments related to this since we're on topic. Mrs. T. Rush, great to see you. The Anthony family should be forced to surrender all the proceeds of their son's murderous crimes. Evil people. Yeah, they moved into a mansion.
Have to serve behind bars. People, like I said, still in disbelief, and Next Generation.
What just happened? Where's that sound coming from?
Vowing that they do plan to help out with the appeal process, which
right here.
should learn more about
Let's watch
in the upcoming days. Now, of course, we are going to be on standby trying to speak with attorneys from both sides as well as family members once they walk out of the courthouse. We'll send it back to you in studio.
All right, Jayla, thank you. We want to get some legal perspective now into today's ruling. We're going to turn to NBC5 Shannon Miller, who covers criminal justice for us. And Shannon, you've been talking with a criminal defense attorney about the verdict and this next phase of punishment. What insight do you have on that?
Yeah, Bianca, Sean DeRadia joining us once again. You've been with us throughout the day today, Sean. Let's re-rack here. We got the verdict coming down around 2:30 this afternoon. So exactly what happens next in all of this?
Now it's going to be in the jury's hand to decide what happens. The defense raised a sudden passion issue, and the judge granted it. So now the jury can decide if he has been convicted of murder, and they can consider 5 years to 99 years, or if they believe it happened in sudden passion, they can consider a lesser 2 to 20 years. And that's up to them now.
So right now they're defining for the jury really what this degree of sudden passion entails, and that really determines again the years that we're going to see potentially him spending behind
Absolutely.
bars.
When that jury is back there, if the 12 of them unanimously agree that this was a murder but done in sudden passion, and I think that's kind of what the defense has been trying to do throughout their case, then they can consider 2 to 20 years. But if they believe that this was an intentional murder, then it's back to 5 to 99 years.
For our viewers who are just getting up to speed, tell us just kind of what happened right after that initial verdict came down. We went all automatically into the next phase of all of this. Get our viewers up to speed on what happened between 2:30 and here within the last hour and a half.
This case has been moving at warp speed. I mean, it went
very
from
fast.
A guilty verdict, we jumped right into sentencing. And neither side wanted to do an opening. The state didn't call any witnesses. The defense only called one witness, and it's moving lightning pace. This is something I've never seen anything like this in my career.
And as far as that jury being able to make that decision in a matter of hours, as far as that guilty verdict, do you think they'll go with that same momentum when it comes to the number of years they put him behind bars?
You never know with sentencing because again, there's so much options there. I mean, they could consider the 2 to 20 years for sudden passion. They can consider 5 years to 99 years for murder. So there's a lot more at stake here. But given that we didn't hear too much testimony, we only heard from one witness. And, I want to speak on that. The defense, their strategy was to only call the mother. That's one witness. I mean, I've had cases in the past, I've defended serial killers. And for that serial killer, the mother shows up. The mom always shows up. They love their child. They have an emotional connection. But for them to call only one witness, that some jurors may be back there thinking, hey, well, the mom loves him, but they couldn't find anyone else in the community to speak well of him. So I think it could potentially backfire on them as well.
Okay, so I mean, again, all of this moving at breakneck speed. I mean, potentially by the end of the day that the courthouse is normally closed up for business, we could be done with all of this?
Shannon, at this rate, we potentially could be done in a matter of hours.
All right, and just as far as, again, the impact here, we've seen those crowds throughout the day today. The most crowds you've seen at the Collin County Courthouse in your 10-plus years as a criminal defense attorney, also a former state prosecutor. Tell me just about the momentum of all of this. You think there's going to be just a moment where everyone needs to kind of catch their breath?
I think people don't know what to think. I mean, this all happened so quickly. It's an emotional case, and this really is a tragedy. The Metcalf family lost their 17-year-old son. They're never going to have a chance to, see him graduate, walk the stage, graduate college, start a family, start a life, a career. But at the same time, Carmelo Anthony's family, their son just was convicted of murder. And that is a stain that will live with him for the rest of his life. And he's facing a potentially lengthy prison sentence.
You've been saying this throughout the day today. There's no winners in really any of this.
There are no winners in this case.
All right, Sean, we appreciate all your insight here. Again, all of this moving faster than you've seen. I'm sure throughout the legal community, there'll be discussion for years to come, just as far as how fast this moved, considering how high profile of a case this was.
I've talked to other experienced attorneys that have been doing this for many more decades than myself, and they are shocked as well. They've never seen anything like this.
Okay, Sean DeRadia, defense attorney here in North Texas. We appreciate your insight and perspective. He's going to be with us throughout the afternoon as all of these developments continue. Bianca and Katie will send it back to you.
Yeah, it is helpful to have that reaction to everything happening there in the courtroom. All right, we want to get out to Meredith Yeomans now, who is at the Collin County Courthouse with more reaction for us. Meredith?
Hey, Bianca. Yeah. We still have quite a crowd out here, and everybody is sticking around waiting to see what this jury thinks Carmelo Anthony deserves after finding him guilty of murder. But I want to back up to kind of bring everybody up to speed about what exactly happened today. We gathered at the courthouse about 8 o'clock this morning. Proceedings began at about 9, and that's when, shortly after, the judge instructed the jury on what they should consider, that being manslaughter, murder or not guilty. This came after 4 days of testimony, emotional witnesses accounting what happened that day, and dueling claims of murder and self-defense. It went to the jury at about 10:50 a.m. after both sides had their closing arguments. So 10:50 a.m. on, we're on verdict watch. Attorneys delivered their final arguments, asking jurors to reach very different conclusions about what happened inside that Frisco track meet tent in April of last year. For 2 hours, attorneys walked through the evidence one last time, the defense arguing that Carmelo Anthony acted out of fear when he stabbed Austin Metcalf. Prosecutors insisting this was never self-defense. In a powerful closing argument, lead prosecutor Bill Werski told jurors the evidence showed a unjustified murder. He repeatedly pointed to surveillance video, teen witness testimony, and Anthony's own words after the stabbing, arguing that Anthony created the confrontation, then responded to a shove with deadly force. Werski told jurors, you cannot provoke an encounter and then claim self-defense. He rejected the defense's argument that Anthony was surrounded or threatened by a group of students, which has long been the defense's claim, saying that video showed a normal scene until, as he put it, Anthony produced a, quote, secret knife. The judge then gave charges to the jury to consider those three options. And, of course, they came back about 3 hours later with that guilty verdict. Now here we are 2 hours later, and we're still waiting to hear what that same jury who convicted him will decide his punishment should be.
All right, Meredith, thank you for that. So again, a very long, event-filled day inside the courtroom there at the Collin County Courthouse. Carmelo Anthony found guilty, but now the punishment trial phase of this trial begins. So we will stay on jury watch for that.
And he could receive anywhere between 5 to 99 years in prison. Again, we have all the latest breaking developments on today's verdict. You can go to NBCDFW.com and our app for continuing coverage. All right, still ahead, the stage is almost complete for the FIFA World Cup Fan Fest. What you need to know if you're heading.
All right, so that's what we've got. Looks like we got one new update over here. That's it. So as of 7 minutes ago, after the jury returned, judge explained that the issue of sudden passion has been raised. He says that if the jurors believe that he committed the murder, under sudden passion, they will decide before a sentencing range of 2 to 20. If not, they will decide between 5 to 99. We'll see if this one is as fast as the verdict. Defense attorneys previously stated that sudden passion is when you commit an act because you didn't take the time to cool off. So you get to have 30 years cut off because you didn't have time to cool off because you were just rushing through the stabbing and murdering of somebody. All right. So that's what we got. Dallas-Fort Worth will keep their eye on it. Let's jump back into your questions and your comments and your brilliance. Mrs. T. Rush, thank you for that. Yeah, and they raised 600 G's. So the money will continue to pour in. I'm sure they'll continue to try to monetize it. What's up? Viva. Viva, thank you for the raid, our friend Viva. Right next door, sending some friends our way. Thank you so much for that, Viva. Hey, Mugetsu Gaming says, bottom line, he's guilty and shouldn't have murdered Metcalf. Hope he gets max punishment. From Mugetsu Gaming. Yeah, and I don't think he'll get, I don't think the judge is going to give him 99. But, 30 plus could be, I think, in the range. He'll get out when he's 50-something. 50-something. Yeah. So we'll ultimately see. Now, they may not have that option. They might have to go up. You could also see the jury maybe coming back on the sudden passion, but then giving him the max on that. So we'll drop it down, but give him 20, which I don't think this is a sudden passion situation at all. At all. It seemed very premeditated. He was looking for a fight, stabbed someone. Dan, I don't think that any witness said that the victim impaled himself on the knife. They didn't say that. It was the defense attorney who said that, which isn't evidence. That's right. He said it could be possible, though, right? He was talking to the medical examiner, the person who pulled out his heart and showed it to the jury and said, yeah, that's the gaping wound that caused many jurors to just go, gasp in shock because of what they saw. It was a brutal stabbing. 3.5-inch blade doesn't need to be a big 5.5-inch blade. It can still slice your heart open. So they didn't testify to that, but they said it could have been possible. And she rebutted that. She said, I mean, maybe. But I think she said something like 1 in 99 possibility that that could happen. We got Londo, horrible defense lawyers. They never objected to the witness stating that it was murder. That was horribly damaging to the defense. Yeah, I think that, you know, we're kind of in the fog of trial right now, like the fog of war. We really can't see if there were objections. Everything that we've read here, there's no transcripts, there's no audio, there's no video. There have been very, good reporting, but very little details on things like objections. I don't think I saw evidence or a reporting of any objection at all in the entire trial. We just saw kind of the testimony. Nobody was just even talking about it. So I would presume that they did. I would imagine that they did object when they said, you know, do you think that it was provocation? Do you think it was murder? I would imagine an objection. That calls for a legal conclusion. That's speculation. He didn't see, he had no idea. So he can't testify to those things. And the judge and the prosecution probably said, well, we're not asking for a legal conclusion. We're just asking as a layman. He's not an expert witness. We don't need to, bring him in and credential him as an expert witness. We're just asking specifically what's your opinion? Like, who does it look like provoke this using the ordinary meaning of the term? Using the ordinary meaning of murder. Murder is very complicated. It comes back to the second question here from Digital Lee. Could you explain the difference in Texas between the murder charge? I'm seeing a lot of people say Karmelo got first-degree murder when it's actually a second-degree murder charge. So my understanding in Texas, and we looked this up, let me just grab the statute, is that it's not a distinction between like intentional murder and doing an action which is knowingly going to injure somebody that causes a murder. Okay, so we just read it in the jury instructions, so let me just go back to that. It's all the same charge. It's not really a difference between, some people will think first degree murder is like premeditated, like I have a plan, I'm gonna organize a hit, I'm gonna, come in and lunge at you in the darkness of the night and kill you and then rob you for that thing. Versus second degree murder, which is more like a crime of passion. Then you go down the scale. You can into reckless, homicide and all these other various negligent, manslaughter, neg hom, all these other things. So it goes kind of down the scale. In Texas, even based on these jury instructions, which we just read, they're bundled into one. So it didn't necessarily even need to be premeditated. It was all part of the same set of charges. Let me come back to that. And just, you may have missed that, but we read through that before. So let me just show you what the jury was instructed. And what the heck did I do with the Dallas-Fort Worth? All right, coming back on this. Day 5. And we read this earlier, but it's kind of all bundled into one. So it doesn't need to be intentional murder. It just needs to be, let me get the language right. Here you go. A person commits murder if he intentionally or knowingly causes the death of an individual. A person also commits murder if he intends to cause serious bodily injury or commits an act that is clearly dangerous to human life that then causes the death of another individual. So there's some intentionality of taking that action. And another one, a person commits manslaughter if he recklessly causes the death of an individual. Here are the mental states. So intentionally or with intent, when it is his conscious objective or desire to cause the result, murder. So that's more like what you hear people say first degree murder. You intended to go do it. Like, I'm going to go kill my wife because of this thing. But in Texas, this is also murder. A person acts knowingly or with knowledge with respect to a result of his conduct. So if you stab somebody, when you're aware that your conduct, like stabbing somebody, is reasonably certain to cause the result of murder. So it's bundled into one. As far as I know in Texas, and again, I'm not a licensed attorney in Texas. I'm in Arizona and California. But that's basically the distinction. So I think some people might see that as two separate things. One is intentional. One, you could stab somebody knowingly and have knowledge that it could result in a person's death. Like it's reasonably certain to cause the result of death, but not intending to cause that person's death. Still murder, right? There's no real distinction between the two. It's not first degree, second degree, third degree, neg ham, and other charges that various states have. So that's what the jury was told. Bearing in mind the foregoing, if you think that he did intentionally or knowingly, so either one, is going to cause the death, whether he intended to kill him or he knowingly stabbed him, knowing, of course, that stabbing could kill you, that's it. By stabbing him with a knife or deadly weapon or with intent to cause serious bodily injury to Austin, and you did commit an act that is clearly dangerous to human life by stabbing him with a knife, a deadly weapon that caused the death, then you will find he committed murder. Like, that's it. It's not because you didn't set out with a conscious object to intentionally murder him. That doesn't minimize your charges. It's all, one big bundle there in Texas. You do something that kills somebody, that's murder. Now, during sentencing, right, they might say that it's mitigated by the sudden passion element, which they're arguing presumably right now. But here's one new update on that. See what we got. Okay, so speaking of your question, Assistant DA called Dewey Mitchell spoke to the jury. He said, now they're saying it's a sudden passion argument. Like he didn't want to kill him, but he had to because of this thing that happened. He said something unique, ladies and gentlemen, happened when we were all in that big room in the courtroom. There was this sense of a bunch of people wanting justice to be done. Y'all are the product of that. And to me, it felt like a community. So thank you. Prosecutor spoke about how during the trial on Thursday, you heard witnesses come out and talk about how Karmelo was like a son, a student. He said, I want to be clear, that's true. But let's not forget, Austin Metcalf was also a son. He was also a brother and the type of man who believed in people. He led the team. He set up the tent. He did all these things. And he said that Austin was certainly full of testosterone. He's a high school kid. He's a big guy. And, they were telling you that didn't apply to Carmelo Anthony, that it was only Austin who was like pumping full of hormones, but not Carmelo. He said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, now the defense is going to come out and they're going to talk about Carmelo's age in their arguments. They're going to say, he's young and he didn't know. But I want you to consider Austin's age as well. He was also a young man. So nothing you do with your verdict, no matter what it is, nothing will take more from Carmelo and his family than he ever took from the Metcalfs. He might go to prison for several decades, but Austin will never be alive. They'll be able to talk to him and to visit him and to write him and be able to see him to hopefully rehabilitate himself into somebody who doesn't stab anybody. But Austin will never see his family again. He will never get to meet the love of his life, never, ever get to hold his graduation plaque or have children, period. So I want to show you some photos about what happened. Once again, this was CPR being performed on Austin the day of the stabbing when he was bleeding out. Metcalf's mother in the courtroom, according to NBC's Maria at the time, was weeping inside the courtroom. Other members of the public on Metcalf's side were also seen crying. He said, this is not about vengeance. We're not here trying to exact revenge on him. This is about justice. And when it comes to justice, it's not about leniency either. In Collin County, where we live, what is the price of taking a life? There are going to be bleachers at stadiums in Collin County whose parents are going to watch their kids play. You may have kids who play it themselves. One of the reasons we're in the community we live in is because we feel safe. And by giving a fair justice verdict, as you did, my prayer is that that's how we find healing. Justice delivered enables the community to recover and move on. from the prosecutor as of 6 minutes ago. So they're back making their sentencing arguments. Let's see if we've got any other updates on this from any others reporting. Let's see. We got JD Miles. Let's see if he's got anything for us. Nothing else on that. All right, so that's all continuing to percolate. Digital Lee, thanks for the update, for the questions on that. Here's from the Babylon Bee from Tony D. Says, nation shocked as jury rules you cannot stab someone in the heart for no reason at all. I know, shocking news. But it's true. Can't just go around stabbing people because you're mad. Quell, what's going on? We got some subpar IQ commentary. We saw some of that on X. Now we know stupid bounces. Stupid bounces, like on a trampoline. I think talking about Tariq, that fella. He is extreme. He is lucky extreme stupidity isn't a crime, or he'd likely get life in prison for that other guy who was commenting on X from I'd Rather Be Skiing, who was just rage posting. This is bigotry. Hate black people. It's like, come on, man. The evidence was clear. The witnesses that Carmelo Anthony's defense put up were also very clear. Hey, Sean of Thyme, what's going on? The family needs to be investigated for their personal fundraising off this felony now. Yeah, and I wonder how much of this money was sent back in for an expert witness or any of these other people. They didn't present, as far as we know, any expert witness. They were just going off the state's witness. So not a lot of money was spent in the defense. Now, they may not have been able to find a good expert witness because this case was so damning against him. But it was a lot of money. And I'm sure those defense lawyers were not cheap. And this case was going on for over a year or so. But we also saw that they moved into a mansion, right? Wasn't that the story? Carmelo family mansion. They buy a mansion. Wow, they're renting it. So yeah, they now living with the family in a $900,000 home in a gated community, bought a new car after the release on bond. That's amazing. That was over a year ago, April 16th, 2025. Said that they moved inside a luxurious gated community despite requesting that a judge lower his $1 million bond. We have no money, but now we got to go move into a mansion. 17, he's holed up with his family at the pricey home inside the gated community of Richwoods in Fresco, Texas. Was released. They reduced the bail to $250,000. He got a bunch of time with his family that many other people would not have been able to get for allegedly killing Austin Metcalf, now confirmed. The rent is $3,500 a month, had a white Suburban and black Acura, and a third sedan, according to the outlet. Neighbors said the family had just bought a new ride. Nice. He got a new car, the resident told the outlet. Neighbors are like, I can't believe this crap. If you look at the license plate, it's got a paper tag on it, and it expires. Richwoods is about a mile from Centennial High School, where Anthony went to school. Residents in the gated community were allegedly unaware the family was living at the home until Anthony was released on Monday, and have voiced concerns about having, a murderer in the neighborhood. An anonymous mother in the neighborhood said, not good. Not good. I don't think he should be out. Not good at all. Another neighbor told the outlet that his family is not poor if they live in a gated community. They're not poor people, that's for sure. The home has also been getting flooded with deliveries, allegedly for the family, with Amazon trucks being seen making multiple drop-offs. Well, you got to fill the house up, You move in, you got a bunch of cash, you're flush now, your son's a murderer, you're like a national hero to a certain class of people. So you got to populate this big new house, don't you? So Amazon delivers. The best thing they can do is move, said another neighbor. I think that would be best for everyone. Unclear how long they've been living here. Anthony had been locked in Collin County Jail, charged with first-degree murder. Also 17 for killing Metcalf, stabbing him in the heart. They said to the police, and look, they already raised all this money, man, even back then, $440,000. So most of the cash came in immediately thereafter. $1 million bond reduced to $250,000. And others don't even get bond. Was Derek Chauvin out on bond? I don't think he was. Kyle Rittenhouse was like a $2 million bond, right? Did they reduce his? The lowered bond came after 1 week when the attorney said this is excessive. The fund was set up with the help of the teen's legal fees. And they also hired additional security. So they became like superstars with security, paying for security. All this money is going to mansions, cars, Amazon deliveries, and armed security. So the judge reduced the bond. This family needs to be able to survive. There's been a tremendous amount of pressure. So living in a gated community, security details and criminal defense are not cheap. It's all very expensive. A chunk of it had gone towards the legal defense. That getting the money was difficult, and a chunk of it, but not all of it, had gone towards Anthony's legal defense. All right. So that's where they're living. All right, so Dallas-Fort Worth. Let's see if we got anything else happening here. The trial continues on for sentencing. Any other updates? Not looking like it. All right, so we'll keep our eye on that. Yep, what an interesting use of cash. Thank you, Sean of Thine, for that heads up. Mrs. T. Rush, he went to several tents prior trying to goad someone. His intention was to delete a white boy. Plain and simple, this should be a hate crime. Well, it certainly feels like he wanted this to happen. He brought a knife, which was all premeditated. And they didn't even talk about that. Like, did he have a, like, what was the justification for bringing a knife? Was he beaten up before? Did he get attacked in some other incident or some other track meet? Like, was there a reason he was arming himself up that would justify this current practice based on a prior incident? Not that we heard. So he just wanted, it sounds like, to go cause a problem. I have no idea why. They didn't explain that. Their witnesses didn't explain that. He could have taken the stand to explain that. He didn't do it. Alexandra, what's up? Hey, I'm a twin. I can't imagine going through what Hunter Metcalf had to go through. I'm shocked that such a young man was able to keep himself so composed. Seeing the person that murdered his sibling, let alone my sister, tough kid. Man, shout out to that, Alexandria. Couple of beautiful ladies here on the screen. Twins to boot. That's amazing. Yeah, you know, it's siblings. There's a special bond with siblings. I lost my brother, not to murder, which would be a different category. But after a long battle with drugs and then suicide, and you know, it's like a hole in your life. So to be a twin, I think, just elevates that because you kind of go through everything together. It's like your best friend. Hunter, you could hear the testimony saying he was screaming. Apparently they played video where he's screaming, wailing in the courtroom, which is just horrific, man. It's horrific. And so I agree with you. I don't know how exactly he's getting through it, but losing a sibling, and we do a lot of grief support at ericshouse.org, as we've talked about here. You guys have been tremendously supportive with that organization, nonprofit, that helps people who've lost somebody. But people grieve differently, right? Parents grieve differently because parents are not supposed to outlive their kids. Siblings grieve differently. Children grieve differently when their parent goes. Very special relationships, and there's something about twins. It's almost like your souls are entangled. So thank you for that one, Alexandra. Shout out to your sister, too. Good to see you both. Hey, Zoltan Physiques. Anyone still talking about race is the racist. It is old hat and truly a stupid conversation. The rest are out there having barbecues and birthday parties together. Everyone is a different shade of brown. Yeah, it really has no meaning as far as I can tell anymore. This is happening with a lot of these accusations and words that are being bandied about. The more you use it, the more you accuse people of all these things, the less meaning it has. If everybody and everything is a racist, then calling the actual racists is diminished. It waters it down. It evaporates the power of that phrase and that accusation. I mean, we get called names here all the time, and it's mostly meaningless. I used to care a lot about that. I used to really care. Man, how dare you think that I'm that type of person who believes that? I don't believe it. Say whatever you want, because everything I think, everything I say, everything I do to somebody is racist out there. It's bigoted. It's transphobic. It's whatever. So I just don't even care. And I think, honestly, a lot of people are at that stage. And it's just, it's just a waste of language, but it used to be an old way to corral people into a certain mindset and into a certain ideology. So it still has power from a prior generation, and it just no longer does. But they're hanging on to it. And in fact, in one political party, it's the entire basis of their ideology. If they don't have those tools to call you racist or homophobic or transphobic or xenophobic or whatever, then they'd actually have to deliver policies, and actual goods and services to the American people and to their voting constituency, but they can't do that. So they'd rather just continue to lob insults because it's cheap votes. It's cheap energy that they generate for their side. Hey, Biltong is here. Get your Biltong at BiltongUSA.com. Use code Robert, save some cash moolah, 10% off if you put that in at checkout. It's keto friendly, no additives, high protein. BiltongUSA.com. You know where to go for that. Thank you, Biltong. Hopefully that meat is flying off the shelves. Hey, Indoctrination, man, thank you for rating us. Indoctrination in the house. And we'll take a look at Dallas-Fort Worth here in a minute, just giving some time for the defense to make their arguments. Jack Mack, what's up? Hey, it's troubling how much race subjectively impacts the way people think now. Where are the blindfold and here are the details of the case? And probably 100% of the people would agree with the verdict. It's so mindlessly tribalistic. It is, and people will just presume as well. Like, I think there's still a big contingent of society that thinks that Kyle Rittenhouse shot a bunch of black people. He didn't. They were white. It's like, what are you talking about? But it turned into a racial thing, even though it wasn't racial at all. He was protecting a property that was under attack during the Summer of Love, and guns went off, and he shot some white people, but people still think that he's like a racist murderer of black people. What are you talking about? People saw Derek Chauvin, white cop, black man, George Floyd. Instantly, it becomes a racial thing. Nobody saw. We saw it. We covered the whole trial here, but we saw the state's witness come out and say it wasn't asphyxiation. The knee on the neck did not cause him to suffocate and die. Did not happen. He had arterial sclerosis, hypertension, fentanyl, meth, multiple other drugs in his blood, and his heart just gave out. And he was complaining about breathing when he was in the back of the squad car. I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Nobody was on his neck. So it just, like I mentioned before, it has to become about race because any other argument, it's like a red herring. It's to distract you from making a good argument. It's a lot more convenient. It's like your climate change. Just talk about climate change and we're going to save the planet. Oh, really? How are you going to do that? Well, light bulbs and cars and it's really happening. Okay, whatever. So you just talk about something knowing there's nothing you can do about it, but it's propaganda enough that it will cavort people into a certain belief and a certain set of action. But it's losing all its power as far as I can tell. And it's a bummer, actually, because there are some racist people that are, not honorable, good people because of their bona fide racism. But when everything becomes racism, then really nothing is racism. And that's happening across the board with a bunch of other words that are being bandied about out there. And I think we're going to see the same consequences from them. Thank you, Jack Mack. What's up? Hey, Trino Galaxy. The new KKK is a bunch of griefers demanding power. Well, I think the KKK is really the SPLC. They paid for their crosses. They paid for their fuel. They transported people to these various events. And then they said, here, have some money. People said, I want to get out of the KKK. They said, oh, no, you don't. We're going to pay you to stay in there. Like, okay. And we're going to pay you to go to rallies and continue to open chapters and expand the racist endeavors paid for by the anti-racists. And then we'll put you on the website. And then one person who was a part of the hate list on the SPLC ultimately was communicating with the SPLC saying, can you change my bio on your website, please? It's a little bit too aggressive. I can't recruit anybody if it's so aggressive. Like, sure, happy to do that. It's like a joke. And so you're like, oh, we got to stop white supremacy. Stop the SPLC. Pretty simple. Sergeant RP Games, hey, Heavenly Father, bless Robert, Alexis, and coming baby. Amen. from Sergeant RP Games. Man, thank you, Sergeant RP Games. Heavenly Father, thank you. We'll take it. We need it. Baby's coming July, and Alexis is entering the final phase of birthing this child. So thank you for the prayers. We definitely will use them. Thank you, Sergeant. Hey, Alexandra, how likely do you think more Summer of Love riots are after this? I was a little bit nervous about it at first, but now looking at the media reaction, I don't think it's likely. If it was something that they wanted to engineer, MS Now would be covering it. They would say, this is a tragedy. All people should be outraged about this. I have been watching this from my side eye. MS Now has not said anything about it. So the media is not bought in on this. They're not going to exacerbate this into something that it isn't. It looks like. Now, that might change if the sentencing comes down, but the same, the George Floyd outrage was already pretty well engineered and baked in by the time the Derek Chauvin trial started. He was convicted before it even opened, before opening arguments even occurred. So here, I think they know it's a pretty clear stabbing. The testimony was brutal. Hard to overcome a lot of those presumptions, and it seems pretty quiet out there. CNN had a brief blurb about it. MS Now's not talking about it. Fox News was covering about it. But if it was going to be engineered into a big, national scandal, I think it would have already been there. So I'm hopeful that it isn't. I'm hopeful that it's just all right, man. Did you hear the same trial we all heard? Yes, we know. You're upset. Whitey, crackers, whatever. We got it. But the evidence was the evidence. And black people testified against him. So the real Justin, what's up? Irina, Austin, Henry, enough is enough. Yeah, and it just seems like there's a new one. Irina Zarutska, Austin Metcalf, and Henry Zowak, I think is his name. I may be getting that wrong, in England, which was also brutal. Yeah, and they don't care. Like, the media doesn't care. If it was reversed, if this was Austin Metcalf stabbing Carmelo Anthony and Carmelo dying, MS Now would be talking about it all day long. CNN would be covering this wall to wall. And if Metcalf got convicted, maybe there would still be riots, just like there were back during the Summer of Love. Ridiculous. Zone Girl, it was not passion. Immediately after he is bragging, he says, I'm not the alleged offender. I did it. Not impassioned. Went there with a knife, knew what was going to come, and wanted it to happen. So I agree with that. I think that this was way more premeditated than a passion. So the defense attorney just came out. Here's a little bit more. As of 11 minutes ago. Following Mitchell's statement, Mike Howard spoke to the jury regarding sudden passion. Defense lawyer. He says, I will not stand here and say what the right verdict is. I have stood in front of many juries in my career, some big, some small, and I've had this conversation many times, and it's never easy for me. But I couldn't begin to tell you what the right thing to do is in this moment. You will know that in your own hearts. Okay. He reminded the jury that the court respects their verdict and that their role in this process. Carmelo Anthony, again, seen crying in the courtroom as Howard spoke. Man, this dude has been crying for like hours now. He said, anyone who stands up here and tells you and puts a number clearly out there doesn't understand how hard your job is. Referring to the jury's role in determining how long Anthony will spend in prison. He said, I can only ask you to consider both sides. Follow your heart and follow the law. Saying, Howard then defines, I think I got it. Got it. Punk, get out of here. Howard then defined sudden passion, explaining that it is an emotion. What is it? It's an emotion. A feeling that is directly caused by provocation by the individual who was killed. So Austin provoked Carmelo, or others being killed at the time of the offense. He says, sudden passion doesn't mean blaming Austin or Hunter or any of those memorial kids under that tent at all. This is not about blaming the victim. He said, but decisions are made in the heat of the moment, and those are different than decisions that come out after reflection. So when something happens, Austin, Hunter, the kids under the tent, when that happens, we don't know exactly, well, whatever happened. And you believe that Carmelo felt terror in that moment such that it rendered his mind incapable that he didn't have time for cool reflection, then that's when I think sudden passion applies. So you should carve off a maximum of 80 years off the top, saying you don't have to be sure of sudden passion, okay? And so I want to play this video for you. I think the video helps really show that, because for all this talk about what happened, you know, at the end of the day, that video was just mere seconds long. There was a buildup, sure, but then a moment where everything happened in mere seconds. So I ask you to consider both sides. Yes, the Metcalfs have been irrevocably changed by this, and all our hearts go out to them. The Anthonys too. There are innocent people on both sides who have lost significantly. So thank you for doing your duty. I'm going to agree with Mr. Mitchell in that healing is needed, and you guys are going to decide what that is. So just follow your hearts, jurors. And their hearts were made up pretty damn quickly in the verdict when that dropped today. So we'll see if they come to a conclusion. Let's check a couple other sources to see. Nothing from JD Miles. Let's see if we got anything from Marianne Martinez with the Daily Mail. Nothing there as well. And not much being covered by the cables, as you can see over here. We got Tallarico stuff, Johnson, Secure America Act, more pharmaceuticals from MS Now, and Plattner. We got primaries tonight happening all across the country. So we'll keep our eye on that. We'll see if we get anything else here coming up. What's up, Zone Girl? It was not passion. Immediately after he did it, he said, I did it. Rob, this is the only thing that will start deterring the younger generation. Fear from a strong justice system. They aren't going to feel they can do whatever they want to and get away with it. Yeah, well, that's the kind of whole point of the criminal justice system. Oh, I see what you're saying here from Rumble. Better donate some Kentucky. He's going to need it. Like Kentucky, I was going to make another joke about that, but that's also, all right, thank you for that, Rumble. Hey, Amara Russ, kind of feel sorry for Mello. You know, he's young and small framed. He's going to have an interesting experience in prison. Thank you, Amari. We don't want people getting R'd in prison, you know, even if they're murderers, because that's not good. But, you know, they're interesting jokes. So thank you, Amari. He is a young fella, and he's not going to have a knife to stab somebody in prison. Fallen Hero, what's up? We got nice, I think, kitty cat emoji, something. Voice of the people. He was obviously guilty. Yeah, I completely agree. The question was whether or not the jury would try to contort themselves into a pretzel and escape that same conclusion. They didn't. Evil Revelations, what's going on? I have to wonder if Carmelo Anthony will claim bad representation as a grounds for appeal. His lawyer did seem to be a little less than good. Yeah, and it's hard to gauge that because we just can't see the full transcripts and the full text of the trial. But it's a pretty bad case. Even their own witnesses, like that's the one that really gets me. Why did their witnesses come out and say, yeah, he was in the wrong? You should not have called that witness. So maybe he'll make a claim for ineffective assistance of counsel or something like that. But generally they have that pretty well, you know, buttoned down. Like when you submit your form to go to trial, you sure this is what you want to do? How many witnesses are you going to call? How much time do you need? Oftentimes a judge will give you an advisement. You know, these are the consequences. This is how it works. This trial has been completely locked down, so we haven't seen anything. But if you reject the plea deal, you understand this could happen. And are you happy with the assistance of your lawyer? Yes, definitely. Great. Perfect. Okay. So that's probably on the record a couple times over. So unless there's something that really meets the level, sufficiency that would justify that claim, those usually fail. Because every defendant claims that. My lawyer sucks. They didn't do a good job. So the standards for that are pretty high. But I think the bigger argument will be about the striking for cause of the black jurors. And I would again imagine the judge buttoned that thing down too and made his conclusion. So you never know. You never know. We got Backdoor Dugan, the federal judge who let the illegal alien use her backdoor. She's making up a new defense. What's going on, John? Should we petition that money from the fund be frozen now that it's payment to a convicted murderer? Well, that's interesting. Yeah, what's the give, send, go policy on that? Can you continue to raise funds if you're convicted of a crime? I don't think so. Don't they nuke everybody else's accounts when they're raising money for a criminal case? Pretty sure I've seen that. So maybe they'll lock it down now. Let's do a refresh. Is he still getting some money? 7 minutes ago, $50, $10, $30, $20, $25, all anonymous. Use your names if you're donating to a convicted murderer. Use your names. Don't be cowardly. Londo, Mello should be in jail until his victim rises from the dead, which would be for a very long time. Hey, Jim tells you you're streaming. Man, amazing. Jim, happy to do it. Thanks again for the raids. I'm getting my show all set up for this evening to follow you when you wrap up. If you can do the raid again, that would be awesome. Happy to do it, Jim. Have a great stream. Thanks for the dono, my man. Keep up the good streaming. Kimmy Hunt, what's up, Kimmy? Timu Al Sharpton had to repeat the name of his grift NGO 6 times. He wants money. He wants that cash money. Well, never let a racist grift go to waste. I think that's the phrase. Didn't Rahm Emanuel say something similar? Never let it go to waste. Califab, thank you for that one. Califab, will there be a civil case and will the donated money be used to pay it? Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, would the Metcalf sue? Do they have any assets? Karmelo doesn't have any assets, right? It's not like suing OJ. OJ had a lot of assets. I'm sure Karmelo doesn't have any assets, so is it worth it? Probably not. Maybe for those donated funds, but probably going to be now it's a battle between being entitled to the cash versus being able to collect the cash, which is a distinction. So it may all be gone already. So I would imagine he doesn't have much of anything. And that 600 G's is probably, if it's not gone, it's about to be gone. Califab, what's going on? So in terms of just practicality, like I'm sure they could sue, but will they? I think it comes down to recovery. Ryan, Sir Mister, thank you, Ryan, for signing up and supporting us as a new member. Very appreciative of that. We'll have a great members only stream in the morning, no doubt. Voice of the people. Everything that family bought off the legal funds should be seized from the family. They got rich off this. Yeah. Got a nice new mansion, apparently. Got a new ride. Got private security. Probably a bunch of new drip. Should have spent it on the lawyers. Zone Girl, the problem with us ignoring violent protest, destruction of property, and stealing up to $900, not over the $1,000, no problem. These young learn that due to their status, they will get by with this. Maybe a slap on the hand. He thought he would never be convicted. He had this threatening crowd on the steps of the courtroom, and then they had their publicity out there, and they treated Austin's family like dirt, but put Mello's, quote, on the news quite often. Yeah, it's an interesting development. I mean, when I was practicing criminal law, there was no celebration of criminal defendants at all. It was like a battle to go out there and to say, we have a presumption of innocence. People would say, you're an idiot, shut up. Then George Floyd happened, and like the whole thing got inverted. It was a wild thing to witness as a lawyer. Then all of a sudden, the cops are bad, the prosecutors are bad, and the criminal defendants are good. Total inversion. I've never seen anything like it in my whole life. And I'm sitting here going, now I look back on that, I'm like, geez, man. Think of all the plea deals I could get in the aftermath of George Floyd. Like everybody's walking free, especially if they're illegal aliens. But the question, of course, is why? Why does the Alvin Bragg of New York, the Manhattan DA, why does he give a transgender child abuser who is an illegal alien from Guatemala or whatever, we covered that story here, why does he get a special plea deal where an American citizen would not? where any other, white defendant who was a citizen of the country who did the same thing would go to jail or prison for 50 years, rightfully so. How come that is? It's because, from my opinion and perspective, it's a filter. They're installing a filter for their cities. They want certain people there. They want other people out of there. It serves them. It creates for them political benefits. It creates a highly motivated cabal of voters who are ultra influential in their domain. And they want this refinement process to continue on in their states and localities. They're happy in LA to bring in a bunch of illegal aliens, 2 to 3 million of them, whatever the numbers are, who even knows, and force the other productive members of society out. Force the Joe Rogans to leave, force the Starbucks to leave, force the Bezos to go away, because they don't want them anymore. They know they're leaving. People say, you're leaving, you're most productive. We don't care, because it doesn't serve them to have people who are powerful in their domain. They want all of the people who would object to them to get out. They want the rest of the people who are supplicant and compliant with their power to stay. And it's this big filtering process that's happening all across the country. So I think that's why you're seeing these literal policies in place in California and in New York and elsewhere. It's not because of any semblance of justice or righting racial wrongs or whatever. It's about creating a different society and a different demographic. That's why the rules are favorable to one side and disfavorable to the other side. Thank you, Zone Girl. Evil Revelations. I hope Austin's family sues Carmelo Anthony's family. They acted like they won the lottery and went on a spending spree. They should not profit from Austin's death. I agree. Yeah, they shouldn't profit from it. The jury just came back. Get out of town. 15 years. Are you kidding me? Is that it? That's what's being reported. All right. Jury left the courtroom at 4:40 to begin deliberations. The sentencing phase has now begun. He's been found guilty of murder. Texas law says murder conviction is punishable by 55 to 99 years. The defense argued that this is a sudden passion crime. If they believe it was a sudden passion, range drops down to 2 to 20. Court will be in recess until the verdict is reported back. Let me check on X. See if we've got any updates on this. Jury still deliberating, according to Brooke Taylor from Fox News. Anybody else seeing 15 years anywhere? Not saying it's not true. I'm just trying to find a good source for it. Nothing on the cables happening right now. Let's check with this other individual. Let's see. Where is that source coming from? Do you have a link in there? Drop us a link. Because whoever that is fast. Fox News, as of 2 hours ago. Somebody deleted a post that said 15 years. So that might be fake news. Let me see. Here's what I'm seeing right now. 15 years is not enough for a murder. That post got deleted. So I'm not sure if that's the one that you were referencing. All right, so put a pin in that. Let's see what an official reporter has to say about this. Still not seeing any updates from Dallas-Fort Worth. What else we got? Fox 4 News, they're also reporting on this. As of about 10 minutes ago, jury begins deliberating on the sentence. Sarah Fields is also posting. Let's check Sarah Fields. They're still deliberating. So the 15 may have been fake news that's spreading around. Looks like somebody may have deleted that. Sarah Field says, I'm still inside the courthouse. We are currently waiting on the jury to finish deliberating on sentencing 4 minutes ago. After sentencing will be the victim impact statements. I will update everyone when I leave for the day. I just wanted everyone to know that we are safe. All right, so put a pin in the 15-year thing. Hopefully that's not the verdict. But Sean of Thyme, thanks for the heads up on it. Gave us an opportunity to look around. Thank you for being a member for 13 months to boot. Mrs. T. Rush, put Little Mello in General Pop. Well, yeah. I mean, he's overage now. He's over 18. So he doesn't need any special protections. He's a tough guy after all. Snuggle Struggle. What about if Karmelo didn't care at all? Where Karmelo never bothered to even consider what his actions would cause another human being. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of incorporated into the statutes. So it's like about intent. Like, is it a reckless disregard? Is it a conscious disregard? And I think that was also in the jury instructions. He exhibited a conscious disregard, which is another way of saying you just didn't care. You just started stabbing somebody without even thinking about what it might do to that person. And it killed them. So since you didn't care, you exhibited and you took an action that killed somebody, you're responsible for that. That's murder. You have to care not to kill somebody. But it's different in terms of intentionality. Was it intentional murder? Was it a conscious disregard? Was it reckless? Was it negligent? Did you just forget to secure a strap on the back of a car and it killed somebody when the thing fell off? You were negligent in doing this, but you definitely did not want to kill somebody, but you still did. So negligence versus recklessness versus conscious disregard versus intent versus passion. These are all various mental components of the charges, which you see often split up across the board. We're arguing about passion right now. Hey, Kittenhead, man. Thank you, Kittenhead. Hey, Rob, I listen to your show every day. Thank you, Kittenhead. I really appreciate that. Anyway, I'm sure when he goes to prison, the other inmates will want a piece of that money, if there's anything left. I don't think it's going to be a very good time for him. I doubt it. Yeah, that's probably why he realizes that. Probably why he's having a mental breakdown, shaking all over the place. So no updates still. And thank you, Kittenhead, for watching the show. We appreciate that. Sharpie Guy, hey, missed your schedule by an hour, Rob. Well, yeah, sorry. I mean, we just jumped live. As soon as I heard, I'm like, verdict already? What? We jumped on. We went live as they were announcing it. Sharpie Guy, good to see you. Anthony, in my opinion, is a murderer and good riddance from San Antonio, Texas. I'm an hour behind, so I'm sure you already said enough. Blessings, watchers. You're ... Amazing. Thank you, Sharpie Guy. Great to see you. Glad you're back in the locals. Rob, remember that what the Justice Department did to Brian Colfage, the We Build the Wall campaign, for using some of the money for personal use? Yeah. No, not actually specifically. But sentences are massive. Like Amy Bach stole a bunch of money, $250 million allegedly. I'm sure she didn't take it all. But she got 40 years for that, for a financial crime. Nobody was stabbed in the heart. 40 years. So maybe killing a young 17, 18-year-old man merits a harsher sentence than the 40 years that Amy Bach just got. Londo, pink skins are people of color too. It's true. White is a color. How is that different from colored people? Well, I think using the phrase colored is, it's got some racial intonations to it. I find this all very artificial and confusing. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think back to MLK, who's supposedly like the steward of America's race relations in our country, and he said, judge not by the color of your skin, but by the content of your character. That does not apply at all. I wish it did, but it doesn't. Now everybody's carved up into these little segments of society. Black, white, Asian, gay, lesbian, trans, LGBTQI+, AXB, 2A, spirit people, whatever. Everybody's got to be carved up. And it's ridiculous. It's like, how much further can we diminish ourselves into these various groups? Is that going to continue forever? Many people would like to. There's a whole industry around it. Lurch Linger, what's up, Lurch Linger? Thank you for bringing in 5 new members. What's up, Donna Smith coming in? DG by Grace, welcome. Marsha, Nicholas, we got Karina Jones, Steve J, all in the house. Man, thank you guys for coming in. Happy new membos. Lurch Linger, thank you for being a membo, bringing in 5 new friends. Dan, actually, those white people were chasing Kyle Rittenhouse. They were pedos and criminals. It's true. Yeah, but there's like an implication that this was a racist attack because it happened in the aftermath of George Floyd. So it had to be racist because he was white. So therefore, there's a racial component to it. And I think I've seen man on the street videos about that. Still thinking that he killed like a bunch of black people. He didn't. He killed a bunch of white people. One guy was like a convicted pedo. So, you know. Love LASIK, what's up? Hey, I'm a PI and I video people every day. I always say people lie, video doesn't. Thankfully, there was so much video to show that Carmelo Anthony was lying. Thanks so much for your hard work. Man, thank you. Love LASIK. Man, it's a real honor to be spending time with you covering these stories. I think that these are, you know, critical part of America. Society needs law and order, or else it's just anarchy. And so I'm really grateful that we get this time together. And thank you, Love LASIK. Sounds like a very interesting job. And we love PIs here. One of our favorite PIs is Marco Polo, Garrett Ziegler. So maybe you guys can connect on some regard. But yeah, that's true. And that's why we're a big fan of court testimony being broadcast and body cam footage being released by police, because I've seen it go both ways. I've represented defendants who were completely exonerated because the body cam did not match the police report. Completely exonerated. And I've represented people the other way. People come into my office, they say, "You're not going to believe what these cops did to me." So what happened? This, and they caused these bruises, and they did this and this and this. I'm like, wow, are you serious? They did all that? I swear. Nothing else happened? No. You didn't call? No, nothing. I was sitting there and I was attacked by 3 guys. Oh, wow. Okay, well, in that case, like, yeah, you're going to have a really strong case because they're not allowed to do that. That's all illegal. Cops can't just do those things. So they say, well, okay, great. I'll hire you. Great, perfect. We get the body camera footage. I watch it. Wildest thing you've ever seen. This happens a lot, by the way. I'm like, we're going to get the cameras, right? Like, you know, we're going to get the cameras. They're like, yeah, get them. I hope you get the body cams, get all the footage. There's probably surveillance footage outside the bar. Get it all. Okay. Get it. Play it to them. They just like go, oh, well, that's not exactly what I told you. Kicking, spitting, throwing things, like without any provocation at all. Wild times. So we're big fans of video here. Hey, user, do you think Chauvin should have paid for his own lawyer? The fact that he used the one provided by the police union meant the guy had a conflict. I think that he was a good lawyer. I mean, you could have had a team of lawyers. You could have had the best lawyers in the world. Like Derek Chauvin was convicted. Trial hadn't even started. Opening statements hadn't even come down. It was over. And especially in hindsight, there was nothing I think anybody could have done. The jury also had a George Floyd protester literally on the jury who lied about it, and that didn't matter a whit to anybody. Had a shirt on, not during the trial, but we saw him at a prior protest that said, "Get your knees off our necks." Question, have you ever attended a George Floyd protest? Oh, no, never at all. Never. Perfect. Come on the jury. So it's hard to blame that lawyer. I think it was over from the very beginning, but I thought he did, as good a job as he could. And we were trying to offer our assistance during the trial on X, which I remember. And I think he may have raised the same question that we did about George Floyd breathing in the back of the squad car before he was even on the ground, complaining about it. Hey, Bonnie! Man, 25th anniversary here. Married to a wonder man. Not a wonderful man, a wonder man, which is even more impressive than a wonderful man. Happy anniversary, Bonnie, to 25 years to you and your amazing husband. May myself and my beautiful wife reach that as well. We're still working on one. Still working on the first one, but we'll definitely get there for sure. And we'll get to all of the rest of them. I'm just being a loser. But thank you, Bonnie. We appreciate that. And I hope you guys do something fun to celebrate. Londo sending in congratulations. Shout out to Londo. Thank you for supporting Bonnie. And love gets better with every single day, doesn't it? What a lovely thing. Mountain Goddess, watching the Watchers and Family Rock. Man, thank you, Mountain Goddess. It's true. Thank you for being here for 26 months. We'll see you back in the morning. It's going to be a beautiful Membo stream tomorrow morning. Zone Girl. I lived in Collin County for several years and moved to East Texas, but I had students who ran track, and it gave me fear for them that they might have to fear for their life. Man. Was that only when they were playing Centennial or in general? I think a lot of parents are going to start to think about this stuff. I think the schools have all now enacted a policy that you're not allowed to go to other people's tents. Like there's reverberations from this, but we shouldn't have to have our kids worry about being stabbed on a school track meet or any other type of meet. Hey, Jeffrey Phillips, 7 months as a member, man. Thank you, Jeffrey Phillips, for that. The media starts all this crap. Yeah, it's part of the governance layer. Media needs to move and nudge people into certain camps and categories to support the power structure. Race is one of the most common ways to do it. Very easy. Rather than providing useful utility to the American public, you just carve people up. Just black versus white, old versus young, gay versus straight, citizen versus foreign invader, which shouldn't even be a complicated one. Then you get into the foreign policy. Oh my gosh. Rob, family should have hired Nathan Wade for the defense. Why? So he could have sex with the prosecutor? I don't think that would have gotten Carmelo Anthony off. It would have only gotten Nathan Wade. Okay, you got it. One old guy. Attorney Howard is not at fault for not putting in a plea deal. This is from his own website. He said, I combine my understanding of my clients with my legal and trial case experience to build a unique plan for each case. Yeah. That's what a lot of lawyers say all the time. Decades of experience, tons of experience, all the courtrooms, all the things. That's what I said. All gas, no brakes. Tariq is the leader of an FBA racist hate group. What? Of FBA racist hate group? Are they on the SPLC list? Somehow I doubt it. Are they being labeled as enemies to America? I doubt it. They're probably getting promoted because they're on the opposite side. Thank you for that detail. All gas, no brakes. I'll have to look that one up. I didn't know much about that guy, but he was having a rage posting quit today. Not happy. Mountain Goddess. This behavior from kids growing up, seeing destruction, protesters, and everyone kissing their behinds gave people permission to behave this way. Yeah, and also, I think a lot of cultural changes have happened. We've gone, I think, from the desire to not have a racist society to an explicitly racist society. Unfortunately, it used to be more of MLK's belief, which I agree with. Like, can we just like have a discussion? I get the past slavery and all the things. I get it. But like now, shouldn't we be able to follow with the content of your character concept rather than the color of your skin? The priority should be, and it might take some time to get there, content over color. Then, for whatever reason, society inverted. Now it's like literally about color. Your color comes before your content. And if you're this color, then that's better than this color. And then we have the Olympics of everybody. Well, my color's over here and my color's here. And everybody's got to be fighting amongst themselves. So I think that enables certain behavior. Then you have people like Ilhan Omar and others saying like you're on stolen land and like this is not even America anymore. You stole it from other indigenous people or whatever. And so all white people are bad or all whatever are bad. The whole thing has just been perverted, and that's by design. It's all just it's all warring with each other so that they can keep inflating our money, keep invading our country, keep dispossessing all of us. Whether you're a black citizen, a white citizen, a gay citizen, a Hispanic citizen, or whatever, we're all being dispossessed, and we should recognize that. But they'd rather all just us fight with each other and stab each other in the heart. So thank you, Mountain Goddess. Michael Stetson. Karmelo did not have a public defender, people. No, I don't think so. Yeah, those were hired attorneys. Michael, thanks for being here for 37 months, my friend. We appreciate you. That's a long time. That's multiple babies. Hey, what's up, Zone Girl? Do we have an Amazon wish list for this baby? We don't. I think we do, actually. I don't. I think my beautiful wife does. She has, I think, assembled a registry. Thank you for even asking about it. That's beautiful. Yeah, we'll share that. And then I think we also might be having a semi-public, what's it called? Baby shower? My beautiful wife is doing a virtual baby shower. I don't know much of the details. But she said, you know, the Watcher fam has been so supportive of us. Like, do you think we should invite them? I said, hell yeah, definitely. So more will be coming on that if you care to join. Should be fun. My beautiful wife. Do you want to say it?
Sure.
Speaking of my beautiful wife, here she is. Dun 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 dun.
Do it look okay?
You look beautiful,
Okay.
as always.
Hi, Watchers. I'm working on the registry, and you will be able to share the link with them this weekend, probably by like Friday or Saturday. It's been a labor of love, and I appreciate that all of you want to contribute, because we're coming down to the wire here. So I'm like out of breath saying these 3 sentences to you guys. So thank you. The registry is coming, and that's pretty much all I got.
Okay, let's show this baby bump. Look at that baby in there.
There you go.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's real. There's a real baby in there. It's moving around.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, baby. All right, so that's my beautiful wife. So that's the plan. I know, I'm a lucky man. Tell me about it. She's smoking hot. Anyways, so friends, that's my beautiful wife. So that'll be fun. We're looking forward to it. Thank you, Zone Girl, for asking about it. We're excited. And it is coming soon, so mid-July. Hey, Ford Fisher, the conviction of Joseph Morrison, accused of providing aid to the informant-swarmed plot to kidnap Michigan governor, to Gretchen Whitmer, has been overturned. Wow, that's a big one. Wow, that's a big one. Yeah, the Whitmer plot, another ridiculous thing. All right, so Rick D, thanks for that. Let's check back in on the news. We got one new update. Here are some new sketches showing moments before the verdict was read and Karmelo's mother begging for mercy. Courtroom sketch artist Pat Lopez drew 2 sketches Tuesday afternoon, one in the moments before the verdict was read and one of Karmelo's mother on the stand. The first shows Karmelo's defense attorney Mike Howard with his arm across him. Second is Karmelo's mother, Kayla Hayes, on the stand. Karmelo was sobbing with his head down. So jury is now deliberating. What will the sentence be? No updates. No reporting on the 15 years. Fox out of Dallas also sharing this one. Looks like they're still deliberating as of 4:47. So still no updates out there. Rick D, shout out to Sarah Fields doing amazing reporting on this. We have the Nun Report, man. Shout out to the Nun Report. Thank you for rating our stream, the Nun Report. Very nice to have you. One old guy. ESQ Howard's website, the defense lawyer, says the fact that one mistake, one bad day, or even a police officer's mistake could completely ruin or change the trajectory of your entire life made me want to get into criminal law. Well, how about your mistake? Says one old guy. Yeah, I mean, we do all make mistakes. And I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I represented many people who did some bad stuff. Doesn't mean they're bad people. They just did some bad things. Some of them were bad people. But most people who are going through the criminal justice system are good people. And you may have gone through it. You may know somebody who goes through it. There's a high likelihood that somebody in your extended network has gone through it, whether it's a DUI or something like that, drug related. And it's people oftentimes who are hurting and they want to get their life back on track and they make a big mistake. And so even with Carmelo Anthony, you know, it's like I can find myself having some empathy. It's like, man, what the hell happened to this kid? Why is he 17 bringing a knife and stabbing somebody? Is that Was he born that way as a person who just wants to stab people? I don't think so. So there's some other influences, right? He's a young kid, essentially, who has like been brainwashed into this and now is like on a hair trigger because he wants to stab somebody. What is that exactly? And how can we fight back against that? Now, that empathy doesn't translate into a dismissal of the penalties for your crimes. Justice, of course, is still justice and needs to be exacted, but it is, I think it's important to continue to have some humanity as we're going through these tragedies, because it is a tragedy. And there's innocent people, you know, I don't know what his parents are like. I don't know what his extended family is like or what his siblings are like, but they're also losing a brother. And it's like, for what? For what? Because he was raised to be of a certain disposition, or he was watching certain things or being told certain things. Why is our society creating individuals that will do this on both sides? Yeah. Anyways, we still hope for a severe penalty. Mountain Goddess, all that empathy aside. Mountain Goddess, remember that press conference that Carmelo's family kicked out Austin's father? He went there to pray with them and they treated him horribly. Well, there you go. Right? There's some bad upbringing as well. What a lovely family it sounds like. And I did see that. I remember seeing that other Dominique guy who came out and said that the father was insulting them by showing up to the hearing. Like, this is an insult to us. How dare you come here and impede upon our press conference? It's like, well, you killed his son, so he has a right to attend the proceedings. So it's not insulting at all. His son being killed is insulting. Dan, so what was the damage, cost, and repairs for the Tesla? $700 today. It's going to be $2,000 to fix the Tesla, but apparently she called it a bulletin. So it was a known problem. Our Tesla was clanking and clanking. We're driving like clank, 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 clank. I'm like, this is going to be expensive. And it was $700. But it's like the first repair I've had to do. It's been several years. I don't pay for gas and it drives itself. And I don't even have to get oil changes because it's all just taken care of. So it's like a little bit of maintenance, you know, but still it's $700 that I did not want to spend on a car repair. Yeah. Hodge, I think Carmelo's testimony would have hurt his case. Yeah, maybe. Maybe it would have been worse. I mean, they couldn't have convicted him of a worse crime. So it couldn't have been worse, like legally. But I think maybe it could have, like Kyle Rittenhouse did such a good job. He was explaining himself. He was explaining, this is what I was fearing. He cried on the stand. Remember that? They made fun of him, but he cried out there. He's like, man, I didn't want to do this crap. I was under threat. This was emotion. You know, I was scared. I thought I was going to get killed. They were chasing me, running around. And so if he could have been convincing, I think maybe if he was authentic, then it could have helped him. But you're right. The standard procedure in a criminal case is to not have the defendant testify, because you can get them all tripped up into so why'd you bring the knife? Do you have a good explanation for that? Were you under attack before? You know, what was the motive for bringing the knife? He probably didn't want to answer that. Why didn't you move? All these people said you provoked it. This guy, this guy, this guy. What do you say to that? Yeah, exactly. Kyle Rittenhouse was actually self-defense, so he had a good argument. That's why they probably didn't put him up there, because he couldn't say anything. Like, what's he going to say? But hey, Hodge, thanks for being here for 26 months, my friend. He ultimately didn't. And maybe, I think, juries may also show some empathy if you at least explain yourself. That's the problem, is when you have one side telling the story and the other side really can't tell a story, you're just at a disadvantage. It's like one person gets to throw punches and take shots on goal and the other side doesn't. And unless you have a competing narrative to tell, the jury is just going to fill in the gaps, and they did. So we'll see what the sentence is. Hopefully that's coming soon. We're kind of just hanging out. I hit the refresh. It scrolls us to the bottom. The cables are not covering it at all right now. Period. Let me show you that right here. Ebola, Epstein, Trump's family business. Yeah. and Tom Homan on ice enforcing the law. So nothing there as well, which is interesting because if the colors were inverted, it would be everywhere. Yeah, Hodge, thank you. Hey, where will the first justice for Karmelo riot be? Hopefully there's no riots. It doesn't look like things are popping off. I mean, I think that if there was, even if they come back with like a max sentence, we're not seeing much that's out there. I think if there were riots and protests, I think somebody in the news would be covering them, but none of them are. So I'm guessing it's not really happening. Quell, good point. 3 hours to sunset, though. Yeah. Once that sun goes down, things change. And if the sentence comes back like 99 years, then maybe there'll be something that happens, but I'm not expecting that. We'll see. Thank you, Papa Crawfish. Hopefully there are no riots. What's up, one old guy? Thank you for the nice dono. Remember that forgiveness is not for the offender, but for the offended. Not being able to forgive is like carrying around a 2-ton rotting corpse everywhere you go. Look, the ethnic groups carrying around unforgiveness of this nation, past sins. Yeah, it's a resentment. Okay, the way I think about it is a resentment. This comes from the 12 steps. Part of the reason you do your moral inventory, you do an inventory of your past and an inventory of all the people who offended you and all the rights and all the wrongs and all the betrayals and all the things. You chronicle those out. This person, the big book talks about it. He talks about this guy made a pass at my wife. This guy owes me money. This guy wronged me by doing this. Wronged me, wronged me, wronged me, wronged me. You make a list of all those things. I was wronged by this. These are the people to which I harbor resentment. I'm mad at them for these things. Then you go through the rest of the process and then you get to step 9. And what do you do in step 9? You make amends. After you do your inventory, you assess what was my part in that wrong. I was wronged. How did I contribute to that? What was my component to that? You do that analysis, then you make your amends to those very same people. If you're doing a thorough program. And you don't justify it. You don't call and say, hey, I wronged you when I did this thing because you wronged me and blah, blah, blah. And I had to right the wrong. You don't justify your behavior. You make your amends to that person. Because if you don't, then you carry those resentments around with you the rest of your stinking life. And that causes your addiction, whatever it is, alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, food, porn, whatever. And you harbor it and it festers and lingers around like rocks in a backpack that you just haul around all over the place. Now we have resentment factories in this nation that just spit out resentments. Oh, you should be resentful at white people. You should be resentful at whatever. And it's just, it's like a constant, perpetual rage baiting endeavor, and then everybody gets rich off of it. And we do, you know, we rage here all the time about the defrauding Somalis and all the things, like we get it. But ultimately, we have to take ownership. We have to turn our care over to the will of God and not carry those resentments around. That's different than being, you know, politically inactive or active. But you can't let your resentments control your entire life. Or because it turns into problems. I think it causes cancer in you. I think it wrecks your life because you're just burdened with these harbored resentments against everybody and everything. Everybody's at fault. They're all problematic. You did nothing wrong. Got to look inward, clear those out, and you feel much better. That was my process. Hey, one old guy. ESQ Howard is Carmelo's attorney, private practice. Yeah, I don't think that he had a public defender. He had some good lawyers who were paid well to do it. Yeah, what's up, one old guy? Thank you for the donos today. Kittenhead is now a monthly supporter on Rumble, man. Thank you, Kittenhead. John says, I kind of enjoy resenting some people. Well, you know, some people you need to let those linger a little bit. Clear them out later once some time has passed. But they really can destroy you. And then you're being tongue-in-cheek, but they really can destroy you. And they can be against anything. Like they can be not only against people, they can be against institutions. They can be against church. They can be against like racism in America. Like, does racism exist? Yeah, it does. Okay. Do you want to just sit there and fester in that your entire life? Many people do. They do. Rather than letting that go. Doesn't mean you can't stay politically active in it, but it's a fine line between, you know, activism and improvement and being resentful and bitter and miserable because of it. And there's a bunch of people who are in those categories, no matter what it is. Hey, thank you. Rub some dirt on it. Can you run split screen for the baby shower so the women can hang out in one part of the room and the guys can hang out of earshot from what the women are gushing over? Probably. Yeah. So honestly, we're thinking about doing a Zoom. And then if you want to come join us, just come hang out in the Zoom. I'll be on there. But that sounds good. Like the bros can hang out over there and the ladies can hang out over there. Maybe we can commingle together. But we're thinking about just doing a Zoom if you care to join. I think we'll have some more info on that. But it won't be political. It'll be about babies and motherhood and fathership and all the things. Fatherhood, was that the word? Thank you. Rub some dirt on it. It's a great idea from Whirlpool Galaxy. He can see the pixels. Michelle Parsons, this whole situation breaks my heart. It's terrible, but I believe the verdict was correct. Many don't remember that Karmelo had another knife disciplinary action, but at his regular school. I did not know that. Plus other disciplinary issues for fighting. Yeah, I did not know that, Michelle. This is why I wish I would have liked to see more of the trial record. More stuff released and revealed so that we can get into the nuts and bolts of it. But this has been one of the most locked down trials of all time that we've covered here. Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. Very nice dono. It is heartbreaking. It's like nobody wins. We got a dead kid. We got another kid who's going to prison for likely a long time. Here's one new update. That's just a video. No other update. New sketches. Waiting to see. Now we're just kind of pitter-pattering. Waiting to see what happens. But thank you, Michelle Parsons. Hey, Patriot Girl USA in the house. Thanks for becoming a supporter over on the Rumbles. You're amazing. Arnold Newton. He should get the same mercy as he gave to the victim. Yeah? Yeah, I mean, Austin is dead for life, so maybe Austin should pay for a life with his life. That's the old Hammurabi code, you know? Eye for an eye, as it were. Not the death penalty. It's not a death penalty case, but life in prison. Austin's not coming back. He's dead. Thank you, Arnold, for being here 27 months. That's 3 babies. Rick D. Funny how if one of President Trump's kids buys Post-it notes for their office, it's a serious conflict of interest. And it's all over the cables constantly if that happens. Rick D, good to see you. But Hunter can sit on the board of a foreign company that his dad is responsible for as vice president, and his dad goes over and fires the prosecutor who is investigating his son's company. And that's nothing to worry about. You're just making mountains out of molehills. Thank you for that, Rick D. Rob, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Yeah, it's not meant to be for pirates who come here and exploit our Bill of Rights for their own personal gain, who try to use free speech to cancel free speech, who try to use their citizenship as a mechanism to get entitlements and then to steal from the American population. We are a good moral and religious people. We want to be Christian and care for our fellow man. But when you invite them in and then they steal from you and then stab you and then kill you and then rape your daughters who are running into parks and throw their bodies over bridges, that's not what the country's built for. It's not for that, not to be a dumping ground for the worst of the world. So thank you, Rob. And it's our obligation to protect that integrity. Hey, DJ Phantom, man, thank you guys for all the comments today. The only question is if Texas would execute him. He was a minor, yeah. The death penalty's not on the table because he was a minor at the time. So don't expect to see that. And we got 2 new updates. As of 2 minutes ago, nothing. Community reactions to Carmelo Anthony. Let's come back on that one. So it's going to be either the, what was it, like 5 to 20 or 2 to 20, I think is what we saw. Let me just do a quick refresh on some of these other accounts. JD Miles, let's see if he's still over there in the courtroom. He posted this, the scene outside the courthouse after the verdict. This was 1 hour ago, but this is his latest. We have not watched this one yet. Yeah, so 5 to 99 or 2 to 20. Thank you for the assist. All right, so that's what it looked like outside the courthouse. I think a lot of that has dissipated as of recently. We got 17 minutes ago, a recap from Dallas-Fort Worth, NBC.
The verdict inside the court touched off a lot of reaction from supporters on both sides of this trial outside of that courthouse. NBC5's
Boost this volume a little bit.
Live with that part of the story tonight. Jayla.
Hey, Meredith. Yeah, so tonight we are still seeing people sort of coming and going after that verdict was reached, both people who are in agreement with the verdict, but then also people who are just devastated and shocked that Carmelo Anthony was found guilty of murder. Now, while the crowd has sort of calmed down out here, some tense moments earlier today. In fact, there were several people who were shouting back and forth at each other as, of course, police stood nearby. They had the front of the courthouse blocked off, as well as law enforcement making sure that nobody was able to reach a certain point as sort of, you know, everything was escalating out here. There were people on both sides who had a lot to say. One lady who was almost frozen and just numb after hearing what happened, and then another who said that, you know, she felt the jury had made the right decision and listened to the facts of the case and was able to reach a verdict that she did agree with. But I want to share some of what we heard from people talking to them earlier today.
It's a tragic situation all the way around. I'm glad there's accountability.
What this process did is shown that black lives do not matter in Collin County.
Come on.
You can't lead with emotion. You have to be able to lead with facts, and I think that this jury has done that.
Now, you also had some people out here who were pretty neutral. There was one lady of faith who was sort of just preaching her gospel and sort of just trying to communicate, keeping the peace out here even before the verdict was read, and then especially after it was read. We are on standby as we are waiting for the sentencing phase of this trial to wrap up so that we can try to get some reaction from both attorneys as well as family members. Meredith.
All right, Jayla, thanks so much.
All right, so that's the roundup outside. Doesn't look like there's, you know, anything really popping off here. They had another update as of 6 minutes ago, but looks like a recap post. Jury will now answer unanimously on the verdict sheet whether it was a sudden passion incident. And again, 2 to 20 or 5 to 99. So we'll see what that looks like. Hopefully soon. Yes. And so thank you, DJ Phantom, for that one. And I think I saw another one come skidding in here. Thank you for this. I think Nancy dropped this one. Nancy, hey, thanks for your explanation of recovery and resentments. As a recovering person of 25 years, I have found addressing resentments is the only way to live a happily life and keep an open mind in life. From Nancy. Yeah, you make your amends, not so much because the other person deserves it, even though they might. You make your amends to clear out your garbage because it festers, it lingers in the back of your mind. I was wronged, therefore I'm entitled to something or they're a bad person. It's just like this pebble in your shoe that follows you around forever. So you got to clear those things out. The analogy I like is rocks in your backpack. Every time you make an amend or clear out a resentment, whatever it is. And by the way, the big book has a whole list. Like you can find these worksheets. Since we're just kind of waiting for stuff, we'll save the other segments for tomorrow. But yeah, like let's see. So this is your 4-step moral inventory. Here are 4 sections to your personal inventory: resentments, fears, sex conduct, harm done to others. You say, hey, this is straight from the big book. I'm resentful at Mr. Brown. He pays attention to my wife. What does it affect? My sex relations, my self-esteem, fear, my security. Brown might get my office. Personal relationship, Mrs. Jones. She's a nut. She snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking. He's my friend. She's a gossip. I'm resentful at her. What does it affect? My personal relationship, my self-esteem. My employer, I'm resentful. I'm resentful at my wife. So here's where you do the worksheet. It's brilliant. I'm resentful at, what was the cause of your resentment? How does it affect my whatever it affects? And where was I to blame? Because we all have a role in life. It's not we're all just under attack all the time. So then you go through your fears. I'm fearful of. And we should, you really should do this like once a year. And I think I'm due up for that. But whom did I hurt? What was the cause? What should I have done instead? And your sex conduct. Whoa, I don't have any problems with this. Okay, I'm a happily married man. No resentments here. But then you go through harm to others. What should I have done instead? And many of your resentments equate to this, and they're also your harm. So you go make your amends, and woo, baby. It is a freeing experience. I'll tell you. But not a lot of people like it. All right, and they don't want to do it because it forces a lot of self-reflection and introspection. But it is good. Hey, biology, Rock and Rob, and congratulations on your sobriety, Nancy RN. I'm glad that you got that. Biology always wins. What's going on? Hey, Rock and Rob, I see you're going on the Dangerous Liberty podcast. Can't wait to see you and Gary. We are. Yeah, we got an invite from Paramount Tactical. So we're going to head over there. I think that is Thursday at 10 a.m. I don't know if that's live or not. So it might be in the middle of our members only stream. But yeah, we got they want to hang out for like 2 hours. I'm like, let's do it, man. We'll talk. So Gary from Paramount Tactical, we're going to hang out with him Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern. And again, I don't know if that's live or not, but I'll find that out and see what else is happening there. But all right, so friends, let's see what else is happening. Here's what Fox News has for us. Not much. Talking about the astronauts. We got, violent protests in Kenya at an Ebola facility. All right. What else? NASA revealing mission details on CNN. You've got GOP panicking as Trump undercuts the midterm message. Okay. That's over on MS Now. Oh, that's right. We got SCOTUS opinions on Thursday. So, gonna miss those. Because we'll be over there. Hopefully there's not anything big, which there very well could be. We might have birthright citizenship over there. We'll have to see. Hopefully we don't miss that. Just wait. Supreme Court, don't release those this Thursday. Release them the next Thursday. Because we got an invite. All right, Daily Mail has the latest. Let's see if they're posting anything. Any updates? Nope, that's just a story. Nothing from the Daily Mail. Nothing else really live out there. So it's just the waiting game. All right, we'll see if there's any other comments and we'll hang out. And then see if anything pops on the day. Oh, yeah, we got the Earth Cam. We can check out the DC Lincoln Memorial reflecting pool. I've been watching this. It looks like it's pretty dang full. So this is what the Memorial looks like right now. The reflecting pool out in DC. Looks pretty dang full. I think there may still be tents up there. I want to go touch it. I want to go actually touch it, and see what that material is made out of. But we got little, cars over here, some traffic. Nice little sunset happening, nice little airplane. So we're going to have to go check it out, but it might be full. We might be there. Also good to check that out. All right, so we'll see what else is happening. Any other comments? We'll save the stories. I had a couple other stories queued up. I was not honestly expecting this to go right to sentencing. So that kind of extended the timeline on this. I thought they'd come back for that, but Texas, they went forward with that. So we had some other stories about some California election fallout and some other things that are happening, but we'll just save those. Maybe for tomorrow. Tori is home. What's up? I do wonder if the white jury is all part of setting up an appeal after ginning up to make this a racial incident. Then it will be retried and hard to convict. Miranda says, when all the black people say that they couldn't convict a black kid, even if the evidence points to guilty, they don't get to stay. Yeah. So in other words, there was a reasonable cause for striking them from the jury. These were not racial jury strikes. We asked them questions. They gave answers during voir dire and answered wrong. And so you literally cannot have them on the jury. If they would have been, less biased and given better answers, then they presumably could have stayed on there. But I would imagine this judge is highly aware that this is going to be an avenue of appeal. So he was probably ultra careful. Tobo, this is the arrest record of the race hustler raising hate outside of the murder trial fiasco in Fresco. Dominique Alexander was a danger to his own family and thus to his race. I doubt he's an angel now. Yeah, that was the guy who was screaming cracker at the other side. You're going to be pushing daisies, cracker. You're going to be doing this, crack. Only good cracker is a dead cracker, is what he was saying out there. I'm like, dang, man. Hopefully he doesn't stab anybody. So these are his charges, according to Fox. Felony injury to a child, forging a check, leading police on a high-speed chase, stealing a car, falsely claiming a car was stolen, offensive physical conduct, I'm sure, probation violations, evading arrest, making a false report, theft, continuous violence against the family, misdemeanor assault, felony theft of property, ranging from 2009 all the way up to at least 2019. Who knows when those other ones were made? So, yeah. That's interesting. Thank you, Tobo, for that screen grab. That's a good one. Rob, I asked Grok, would Carmelo Anthony's family be able to profit from the murder trial under the laws in Texas? Oh, man. It's a great question. What did Grok have to say and opine about this one? No, they're not generally able to profit from the notoriety. Here's one version. Texas has a version of a son of Sam law, which is notoriety for profit statutes aimed at preventing convicted criminals from financially benefiting from their crimes' publicity. These laws target proceeds from things like book deals, movie TV rights, or paid interviews. Yeah, I mean, if they did that, let me read it. Sale of crime-related memorabilia like murderabilia, other exploitive commercial uses of the crime's notoriety. Profits from these activities are often placed into trust or forfeited, with funds potentially going to victims. Texas amended its laws in 2001 to cover memorabilia and broader notoriety for profit. The law also applies to the convicted person, like Carmelo Anthony. Family members aren't automatically barred unless they're acting as proxies or directly exploiting the crime. Interesting. What has happened, they have raised hundreds of thousands. That is not considered profiting from the crime. Those are private donations. Courts even granted him indigent status for some purposes despite the funds. There were also disputes over the spending, over a new car. Family disputed that, but it all predates the conviction. But now post-conviction, so that 600 G's, again, I think that supports my prior interpretation that it's, first of all, probably gone. And by the time you sue, it will be gone. So in terms of recoverability, probably a low propensity of getting that accomplished, but probability of getting that accomplished. But anything after the fact, family members could theoretically profit from their own perspectives, like writing a book like Life with a Convicted Son. But again, that might come off of the son's notoriety. Enforcement is imperfect. Many Son of Sam laws are narrow to survive constitutional scrutiny. And there's no reports of them pursuing a book deal or a TV deal. So, yeah, that's interesting. But if they made like a Netflix series and Carmelo Anthony was the hero of the story, that might be a different situation. Thank you for that, Tobo. Very interesting. Barry, there were fine people on both sides from the defense. Ha, ha, ha. Fine people hoax when they misquoted the president and actually refused to include the full quote. Thank you, Barry. Blue Jean Baby, I've always said it isn't the eating for two that's the hard part. It's the breathing for two, from Blue Jean Baby. Yeah, and I think she would agree with that. I think she would agree with that. And it's like getting more noticeable, right? As we enter this final phase, we got like 5-6 weeks left, and then this baby's here. So it's, you know, getting bigger quickly. This little creature in there getting bigger quickly. And so I think she's noticing it more and more. Like every day that goes by, it's like, wow, okay, it's really, you know, really happening. So thank you, Blue Jean Baby. I think that's probably true. But she's crushing this pregnancy. She's amazing. And we're both very excited for this new baby to come. But all right, friends, let's take one more look at some X comments, see if we got any updates. And then we'll close it out on the day. Hey, speaking of the reflecting pool. Okay, so that's nothing. That was from the Washington Post, but that's nothing. Bonnie, I think they will give us a 20-minute warning before the sentence is announced, just like they did with the verdict. From Bonnie. Thank you, Bonnie. Very nice tip. Yeah, that's interesting too. They did do that with the verdict. Let me refresh a couple locations. Do we have primary results that maybe we could take a look at? Let's see. 447. Still no further updates from Fox News. Not seeing anything there. Some X comments. Neuro D, man, thank you. Neuro D in the house. Join the watchers on Locals for morning Membo streams and the best meme smiths on the interwebs from Neuro D, man. Thank you, Neuro D. Hey, Jen, the producer. Hey, that's your boy. Right there. That's a nice looking thumbnail, I'll say. All right, so we're going to be there 10 a.m. Eastern time, Dangerous Liberty podcast for a massive legal breakdown. Look at all these things we're talking about. Carmelo Anthony, Tyler Robinson, Charlie Kirk, election lawsuits, SCOTUS decisions, FBI Judicial Watch, and FOIA fights. Oh my gosh. I got a lot of research to do. Voting rights, ballot deadlines, and government transparency. The courts aren't just deciding cases. They're shaping the future of the country. We're going to get into it. Man, they made me look good. So we're looking forward to it. So check that out. That's going to be Thursday. And I think it's going to be live. So come check that out on Thursday. And we'll post about that tomorrow on Wednesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Yeah. All right. So that'll be fun. So I just reposted that. Check that out. We might miss birthright citizenship. It might be happening in real time. Maybe we'll hit it live. I'll say, stop the show. Birthright citizenship case just came down. We have to read it together. Hey, Jason Trades, what's going on? For 8 months, she is still tiny amazing that... For 8 months, she is still tiny. End thought from Jason Trades. Next thought. Amazing that stabbing someone in the heart is illegal. I thought that was all one sentence. Is illegal. Yeah, it's amazing. Shocking, I know. Texas does it right. He would have walked in California or New York. That's a real possibility. Like literally. It's just a different jury, a different jurisdiction, and a different vibe. Where if you're white, you're already guilty, like Derek Chauvin was. Rob, what is the fountain that has like 30 steps, or maybe it's more? It wasn't running for like 20 years, and now it's running. I know the name of that. And that was like the Malcolm X fountain. Let me ask. Meridian Hill. I knew that. Meridian Hill Park. Yeah, and it's working now, man. So Meridian Hill, it's flowing around Union Station. It's flowing. Fountains are flowing all over DC. It's a beautiful sight. Mountain Goddess, what's up? That cracker saying dude is the father of Jacob Blake. What? His stepson has a video out telling about how he's a deadbeat dad, no job, only protests. I have the link if you want it. Where should I send it? If you can hit me up on X, you can send it on X, or you can email me at robert@spotlightlawyer.com. Would be amazing. Thank you, Mountain Goddess. Jacob Blake. Yeah, didn't he stab some cops or something? His stepson has a video out telling about how he's a deadbeat dad. Who was that? Let me just look that up. Oh, no, that's a different person. He was shot in... Oh, maybe it's not. The shooting of Jacob Blake. That was also in Kenosha. I remember that. I remember that story. I don't think people liked our analysis on that one. I think we talked about this one, though. Anyways, so he's out on... He's now making... That's his dad? Wow. Bonnie, thank you for the dono and the 20-minute warning in the house. And Donut says, Rob... Doc, can you just shove it back in? The SCOTUS just ruled on birthright citizenship. So I think that's a baby comment. When the baby's coming out. Hold on a minute, kid. Stop. Just pause for a second. I got to read 120 pages of SCOTUS decision. We're reading the Constitution to the baby, Bill of Rights, and we'll read the birthright citizenship to this little child too, if it's a good one. But if it's not, we don't want to traumatize the kid too young. Thank you, Donut. I'm sure Mama G would prefer you refer to this as our first pregnancy. She does, yeah. I said something and she said, what are you talking about? Like, I said, yeah, like once we have our baby. And she said, what do you mean? Like your baby, like singular? Do you mean plural? Like babies? I'm like, yeah, that's the plan. But we haven't even gotten the first one out yet. But that's my mom. She wants gobs of grandkids. So we'll work on it. We'll see how this one goes, but that's the plan. Yeah, Tobo, thank you for this. And Blue Jean Baby. Tobo, this article about Dominique Alexander has a photo and the info on the conviction, man. Thank you, Tobo. All right, so friends, I'm not sure that we're going to get it here together. We got nothing else updated. As soon as we end the stream, they'll announce it. So we might just, do that so you can get the results. The longer we stay here, the less likely they'll actually release it. Because that's how it always works. But let's check Dallas-Fort Worth once again. No other updates here from Dallas-Fort Worth. But, man, it has been a doozy of a stream. And let me just do a quick refresh on some of these other accounts to see if there's anything else that's percolating. Sarah Fields reporting. She's still in the courthouse. That's an hour ago. So no news there. Let's take a look at JD Miles. Jury has been deliberating for more than an hour. But the defense is asking for a consideration of sudden passion. It's a factor that can lower the range down to 2 to 20 if they decide that the murder was provoked by the victim. So still not much there. Nothing happening on the cables. Let me share that with you. SPLC hearing, that was this morning. That's Mary McCord. She's a Georgetown law professor. Wow, Polk County, they have a new ice cream truck. Wow, breaking news from One America. Tremendous. Looks like more pharmaceuticals from MS Now. Yeah, there it is. Jardiance. Jardiance. I don't think that's for TDS, but they should promote that one over there. And then we've got, some new windows over there on CNN. So get your windows, get your insulation. You need double paned from Renewal by Anderson. All right. All right. So friends, it has been a lovely stream today. I think we'll pause here. Let me see if we have any election results coming in here. No, nothing here either. Nothing in here. We got this one. Lindsey Graham in the U.S. Senate. No results in. We got 2 minutes on that. Democratic primary, South Carolina. Let's take a look at some of these key races. See what the Times has for us here. Okay, polls close. All right. We'll wait until the clock strikes 7. Countdown continues. But we got North Dakota, we got Nevada, we got South Carolina, we got Maine. I think that Graham Plattner is going to win up there without any doubt about it. Let's check some Kalshi numbers to see if there's anything as we're just kind of stalling for time. Maine Senate. Nominee, look at that, 99%. Yeah, Janet Mills is basically acquiesced. So watch the narrative change on this. Watch it all flip, right? A lot of people are very skeptical about Graham Plattner on the left. But as soon as he becomes their guy, they'll rally behind him 100% and just stop even talking about it. And in the Maine Senate, let's see who is projected to win right now. Maine Senate winner. They've got the Democrat up. Look at that. And this is when all the stuff started breaking about his sexting with other women while he was married to his new wife. Those numbers came crashing down, but he was up in like 70%. Once he wins tonight, which he will, those numbers will go back up in full swing. No doubt. For him. Now, I don't know if the Maine voters will care about that, but probably have some impact, but he's still ahead. He's still up 58-41 right now, even in spite of all that stuff. So they'll taper it down. AOC was complaining about it. A bunch of them were complaining about it because it kind of makes them look like idiots if they scream about Nazis all the time and then go and vote for a literal tattoo of a Nazi person. But it's their party. So nothing is consistent. Everything's about power. No real integrity at all. G-Gum got a new horse at the farm, was busy building a meet and greet fence, put them together for a little bit today. Horses are beautiful. No doubt. Dan, primary elections close at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Nevada closes at 7. Don't know when North Dakota closes. Good stuff. All right. Well, we'll pause here. We'll end the stream so that they release the sentencing date or the sentencing time and the sentence, rather. And then we'll see what it is when we come back tomorrow. But hopefully justice is done. We'll do one final refresh over here and then we'll call it a day. Thank you for joining us for this breaking news stream today. 31 minutes ago, still deliberating. So, all right. So we'll pause here, my friends. It has been a beautiful stream. Michelle, what's going on? Michelle Parsons. Actually, I think they wanted Plattner to win. So after the primary, they can get him out and pick a puppet for November. You think they're going to Joe Biden him? Wow. That's an interesting thesis. So he'll win the primary and then they'll sub him out with somebody else and slot him in and try to like Kamala Harris him. I don't know if they can do that. It might be he might be on the ballot, permanently. We'll see. Interesting thesis. I think they'll rally around him and they'll just kind of shut up. Hey, ixnay on the Otzi-nay. All right. No more talking about the Nazi stuff. He apologized for it. He covered it up. So he's not a Nazi. So, all right, we'll see. So, friends, we'll pause here. I think that's a good spot to drop. Michelle, thank you for the dono. And I think regardless, like, once you become a Democrat, you're pretty much a bona fide Democrat. The only guy who kind of rubs them the wrong way at the current moment is John Fetterman. Every single other Democrat operates in total lockstep with the party, no matter what. They can whine and moan about whatever, but when push comes to shove, you do what Nancy Pelosi says. Or else. They all behave accordingly. But all right, we'll pause here, my friends. It has been a beautiful stream. Thank you for joining us and going through the breaking news of the day. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll have some other good updates. We'll let these stories from today continue to marinate, and then we'll come back and dig into them tomorrow. But we'll pause here. Big thank yous. Thank you for all the donos. Thank you for all the support. Thank you to our new members who joined up. We'll come back in the morning. We'll have a members only stream. Don't need to be at the repair shop tomorrow morning, so we'll be here for that. We got Muffin Rando. Thank you. Donut Mind Me. John in the house. We got K Bean, Carrie B, Neuro D, Janik, Dog Digger, Jeegum Geegum, Elliot, and Just Rhonda modding the fort down for us, keeping everything nice and orderly around here. But it's a beautiful Tuesday. We're going to have a great week together. Thank you for subscribing if you haven't already done that. Thank you for liking the video on your way out. Jim tells you, we'll send them over to you. And of course, thanks for inviting a friend or family member to come over and join us tomorrow, because we will be back here. And in order to do it appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. We'll see you tomorrow, my friends. Make it a great night. Be well, and bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers, truth on our side. Watching the watchers, we won't be denied. Watching the watchers, eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's life